16 months after I buried my only son, a $412 electricity bill appeared from his supposedly abandoned farm. I almost threw it away until a line of text sent a chill down my spine. Person detected. That evening I drove there. From 200 meters away, I saw a stranger's SUV parked in the yard, as if it belonged there. The lights were still on. Smoke was still coming from the chimney. I didn't knock. I drove home and checked his security camera footage. What I saw stunned me. I truly appreciate you spending time here. Tell me, where are you watching from? Which city or country? Share in the comments so I can get to know you. One more thing, this account contains creative storytelling designed to educate and engage. Similarities to specific names or settings are accidental. The core lesson about awareness, courage, and protecting loved ones is what I hope stays with you. The bill arrived on a Tuesday. I was at my kitchen table in Billings when I opened it. One of those thin windowed envelopes from Northern Montana Power. I almost threw it away. I'd been getting bills for the ranch since Ethan died. Small ones, maintenance charges for keeping the heat and water on just enough to stop the pipes from freezing. $30 here, $45 there. I paid them without thinking, but this one was different. $412. I stared at the number, then at the account summary beneath it. Usage 847 kilowatt hours. The words below that stopped me cold. Occupancy detected. Heating, lighting appliances in use. I read it again, then a third time. The ranch had been empty for 16 months. 16 months since Ethan's truck left the highway at mile marker 112, rolled twice and wrapped itself around a cottonwood tree on a cold December afternoon. 16 months since I stood beside his casket and listened to Vanessa, his widow, his wife of 3 years, say through tears that she couldn't bear to go back to the ranch. Too many memories, she'd said. Too much pain. I'd believed her. I set the bill on the table and looked out my window toward the crazy mountains, their peaks pale against the April sky. 67 miles west. Beyond those ridges and across the flatlands sat Cottonwood Ranch. 22 acres of creek bottom and pine, a 2-story log house, a barn Ethan had rebuilt with his own hands, and a workshop where he'd spent every free weekend for 4 years, turning his mother's inheritance into something solid, something his. And now someone was living there. I didn't call the sheriff. I didn't call Vanessa. I didn't call anyone. I walked to my truck, a 2008 Chevrolet Silverado with a dent in the tailgate and 200,000 miles on the odometer, and I started driving. It was 6:45 when I left Billings. The sun was low, turning the sky the color of rust and copper. I took Highway 90 west, the same road Ethan used to take every Friday night when he'd leave his engineering job in town and head back to the ranch, back to the place he loved more than anything, except maybe his mother. And maybe, I'd thought, his wife. The highway cut through open country wide and empty, the kind of country that makes you feel small and makes your thoughts stretch out long. I'd driven this road 1,000 times. I'd driven it with Margaret, my wife, back when she was still alive, and we'd go visit Ethan on weekends, bring him groceries, and help him paint the porch or mend a fence. I'd driven it alone after she died when Ethan needed me, and I needed him. And I'd driven it 16 months ago, following the ambulance that carried my son's body back to Billings for the last time. I drove it now in silence, the radio off my hands tight on the wheel. The crazy mountains rose to the south, snow-capped and jagged, catching the last light. To the north, the land rolled in long waves of sagebrush and yellowed grass, broken here and there by old ranch houses and barbed wire fences. I passed a roadside cross, white wood, plastic flowers, and I thought of the curve at mile marker 112, the place where Ethan's truck had left the road at 40 miles, over the limit. The place where the Montana Highway Patrol had told me he must have fallen asleep, must have been tired, must have lost control. Single vehicle accident, no witnesses, no signs of alcohol or impairment, fatigue most likely, speed, tragic. I hadn't questioned it. Not then. Ethan worked long hours. He drove that highway twice a week. Accidents happened, but now 16 months later, with a $412 electric bill in my jacket pocket and the word occupancy burned into my mind, I started to wonder. I reached the turnoff at 7:20, just as the sun dropped behind the mountains and the sky went from copper to violet. The gravel road to the ranch wound north through a stand of lodgepole pines, narrow and rough, the kind of road that keeps out casual visitors. Ethan had liked that. Privacy, Dad, he'd said when he bought the place. Room to think. I slowed as I neared the property line. The old wooden sign was still there, half hidden by branches. Cottonwood Ranch. Established 2020. Ethan had carved it himself, sanded and stained it, hung it on 2 stone pillars he'd built by hand. I remembered the day he'd shown it to me, grinning like a kid, proud of every inch of that place. I kept driving. At 7:52 p.m., I stopped 200 yards short of the main house and pulled the Silverado off the road into a thicket of pines. I cut the engine. The silence settled in, broken only by the wind moving through the trees and the faint rush of the creek somewhere beyond the ridge. I didn't get out right away. I sat there, hands still on the wheel, and I looked. The house was lit. Not the way a house is lit when someone's left a lamp on by accident. Lit the way a house is lit when someone's living there. The windows on the first floor glowed warm and yellow. Smoke curled from the chimney, pale against the darkening sky. And parked in front of the porch, gleaming dully in the last light, was a silver Honda CR-V I'd never seen before. My chest tightened. I reached for the door handle, then stopped. Whoever was inside that house didn't know I was here. Whoever had been using 847 kilowatt hours of my son's electricity, burning my son's firewood, sleeping in my son's bed. They didn't know I was 200 yards away watching, and I wanted to keep it that way. I sat back. I thought about Ethan. I thought about the last time I'd been to the ranch, 3 weeks after the funeral, when I'd driven out here to check on things to make sure the pipes hadn't frozen, to walk through the rooms one last time and feel close to him. The house had been cold then, empty. Vanessa had said she'd moved back to her apartment in Billings, said she couldn't bear to stay. I'd believed her because I had no reason not to, but someone was here now. And then I remembered. 8 months before he died, Ethan had installed a security camera system. He'd shown me the app once, said it gave him peace of mind when he was away. I'd thought it was overkill at the time. Now, sitting in my truck, with my breath fogging the windshield and the lights of my son's house glowing in the distance, I realized it was the only thing that mattered. I started the engine. I put the Silverado in reverse, backed out onto the gravel road, and drove away. I didn't knock on that door. I didn't need to, because I knew exactly how to see who was inside. On the drive back to Billings, I kept seeing those lights, the warm yellow glow in the windows, the smoke curling from the chimney, the silver Honda CR-V parked where Ethan's Tacoma used to sit. I tried to focus on the road, on the white lines cutting through the darkness, but my mind kept drifting back, not just to tonight, but to 4 years ago, when Ethan first brought me out to see the ranch, when it was nothing but a weathered log house, a sagging barn, and 22 acres of scrub and creek bottom that he swore he could turn into something. He was 32 then. Margaret, my wife, his mother, had been gone 6 months. Taken by a stroke so sudden, we barely had time to say goodbye. She left Ethan $195,000, every penny she'd saved over 30 years of teaching elementary school in Billings. She left it to him because she knew he'd do something good with it, something solid, and he did. It was a Saturday morning in May when Ethan called and said, "Dad, I bought a place. You have to see it." I drove out that afternoon. The ranch sat 20 miles west of Billings, tucked into a bend of cottonwood and pine where the land started to climb toward the Crazies. Silver Point County, a place so quiet you could hear the wind change direction. So empty the nearest neighbor was, a mile and a half through the trees. Ethan was waiting for me in the driveway, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "This is it," he said. 22 acres. Creek runs year-round. Cottonwood trees older than both of us. Main house needs work, but it's sound. Barn needs a new roof. Stables need rebuilding. But Dad, this is where I want to build my life. I looked at the house, 2 stories, hand-hewn logs, dark with age windows that rattled in their frames. I looked at the barn, its roof bowed and patched with mismatched shingles. I looked at my son, and I saw Margaret in his eyes, the same stubborn hope, the same belief that broken things could be made whole. "It's perfect," I told him, and he spent the next 4 years proving me right. Ethan was a structural engineer by trade, the kind of man who could look at a bridge or a building and see not just what it was, but what it could be. He worked long hours for a firm in Billings, designing infrastructure projects across Montana, highway overpasses, hospital expansions, school renovations. Good work, steady work. But the ranch was where his heart lived. Every Friday night, he'd leave the office and drive west, on Highway 90, 67 miles to Cottonwood Ranch. Every Saturday and Sunday, he'd work. He rebuilt the barn roof. Replacing rotten beams with pine, he milled himself. He tore down the old stables and built new ones clean and square with sliding doors that moved like silk. He dug out the creek bed, cleared deadfall, reinforced the banks with river stone. He built a workshop behind the house, insulated and wired with a wood stove and a workbench he'd crafted from a single cottonwood slab. I helped when I could. Margaret's death had left me alone in a house that felt too big, with too much silence and too many memories. The ranch gave me a reason to move, a reason to use my hands. Ethan and I didn't talk much while we worked. We didn't need to. We just built things, fixed things, made things right. And then 3 years ago, Ethan brought Vanessa home. Her name was Vanessa Cole. She was 30 years old, a marketing manager for a medical device company in Billings. She was beautiful. Dark hair, sharp eyes, the kind of confidence that filled a room. Ethan introduced her to me on a Sunday afternoon. At the ranch, the two of them standing on the porch, he'd just finished staining her hand in his. "Dad, this is Vanessa. We're getting married. I liked her. Or I thought I did." She was polite, articulate, quick to smile. She told me she loved Ethan, loved the ranch, loved the idea of a quiet life away from the city. She said all the right things. They married 6 months later, a small ceremony at a courthouse in Billings. Vanessa moved into the ranch. Ethan kept working in town during the week, kept spending weekends building and repairing. And Vanessa, she came and went. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had a career, friends, a life in Billings. It made sense that she'd stay in town during the week, that she'd join Ethan at the ranch on weekends. But the weekends became less frequent. She'd be there one Saturday, gone the next. Work event, she'd say. Conference, client dinner. Ethan didn't complain. He just kept building. I started to notice things, small things. The way Vanessa would sit on the porch with her phone instead of helping Ethan mend the fence. The way she'd talk about the ranch as his project, not theirs. The way her eyes would glaze over when Ethan talked about the spring calving season he wanted to start, or the garden plot he was planning, or the future he was building one nail at a time. I didn't say anything. It wasn't my place. Ethan loved her, and that was enough. Or so I thought. 2 years after they married, Ethan asked me to witness his will. We were sitting in the workshop on a cold November afternoon, the wood stove crackling, the air thick with the smell of pine and coffee. He handed me a manila folder. Inside was a last will and testament typed and notarized, simple and clear. "If anything happens to me," he said, "the ranch goes to you." I looked at him. "Ethan, you're 35 years old. Nothing's going to happen. I know, but I want it in writing. The ranch was bought with Mom's money, under Montana law. It's separate property. Mine, not marital. If I die, it doesn't automatically go to Vanessa. It goes to whoever I designate, and I designate you. Does Vanessa know?" He nodded. "She knows. She's fine with it. She said the ranch was always more mine than hers anyway. I signed as a witness. I didn't think about it again until 16 months ago. December 22nd, 2024. 3:40 in the afternoon. Ethan was driving east on Highway 90 heading back to Billings for a Monday morning meeting with a client. He'd spent the weekend at the ranch. Alone, Vanessa had stayed in town, said she had a work deadline. The weather was clear, the roads dry, no ice, no snow, no reason for anything to go wrong. At mile marker 112, a stretch of highway that curves gently through open country, Ethan's 2019 Toyota Tacoma left the road at 73 miles an hour. It crossed the shoulder, punched through the guardrail, rolled twice, and wrapped itself around a cottonwood tree. The Montana Highway Patrol arrived 14 minutes later. Ethan was pronounced dead at the scene. The report listed the cause as single vehicle accident, excessive speed, probable fatigue. There were no skid marks, no signs of braking, no witnesses. The trooper who called me said Ethan must have fallen asleep at the wheel. It happened, he said. Long drives, long weeks. Fatigue was a killer. I believed him. Because what else was there to believe? The funeral was 6 days later, on a gray December morning, at a cemetery outside Billings. Vanessa stood beside the casket in a black dress, her face pale, her hands shaking. She cried through the entire service. Afterward, she came to me, her voice barely a whisper. "I can't go back to the ranch, Gerald. I can't. There are too many memories, too much pain. I need to be somewhere else." I understood. I held her hand and told her I understood. She moved back to her apartment in Billings. I drove out to the ranch 3 weeks later to check on things, make sure the pipes hadn't frozen, make sure the doors were locked. The house was cold and empty. Vanessa's things were gone. Ethan's tools were still in the workshop, his boots by the door, his coffee mug on the kitchen counter. I left everything as it was. 16 months passed. I paid the small maintenance bills, $30 here, $45 there. I didn't go back, I couldn't, until tonight. Until a $412 electric bill and the words occupancy detected pulled me out to the ranch and showed me lights where there should have been darkness. I pulled into my driveway in Billings just after 9. The house was dark. I sat in the truck for a long time, my hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. I thought about Ethan's will. I thought about the ranch he'd built with his mother's money, with his own hands, with 4 years of sweat and hope. I thought about Vanessa standing beside his grave, saying she couldn't go back. And I thought about the lights I'd seen tonight. I got out of the truck. I walked into my house. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and did the one thing I should have done 16 months ago. I checked the cameras. I pulled into my driveway in Billings at 9:15 p.m. The house was dark. I left the truck running for a moment, staring at the dashboard clock, then cut the engine and went inside. I didn't turn on the lights in the kitchen. I sat down at the table, opened my laptop, and typed in the URL I hadn't used in over a year, ranchguard-cloud.com. The login screen appeared. I entered Ethan's email and the password he had given me 2 years ago, back when he first installed the system. He'd wanted me to have access, said it gave him peace of mind, knowing someone could check on the place if he was away. The page loaded. Welcome back, Ethan Hutchison. Last activity 6 minutes ago. My hand froze on the trackpad. 6 minutes. Someone was watching. Right now. Ethan had installed 6 cameras in April of 2024, 8 months before he died. He'd done it himself. Ran the wiring, mounted the brackets. Synced everything to a cloud server with 16 months of rolling storage. He'd never told Vanessa about the cloud backup. She'd assumed the cameras only stored footage locally. And even if she'd found the physical cameras, the recordings were already uploaded. Deleting the cameras wouldn't delete the evidence. The dashboard listed them by location. Camera 1, front gate. Camera 2, front porch. Camera 3, grain shed. Camera 4, rear driveway. Camera 5, creek bridge. Camera 6, birdhouse hidden wide angle. Mounted in a wooden birdhouse nailed to a cottonwood tree overlooking the yard. I clicked on camera 2. The live feed appeared. Color, high definition. I could see the porch clearly. The rocking chair Ethan had built, the navy blue front door. The brass lantern hanging by the frame. The lights were on inside. I scrolled down. Beneath the live feed was a timeline marked in green and red. Green meant no motion detected. Red meant high priority activity. There were 89 red clips. I clicked on the first one. January 15th, 2025, 11:47 a.m. 3 weeks after the funeral, the video opened on the front driveway. A silver Honda CR-V pulled up and stopped near the porch. The driver's door opened. Vanessa stepped out. She was wearing a black wool coat, jeans, and boots. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired. She walked to the door, unlocked it, and went inside. The clip ended. I sat back. So she had come back, just not to grieve. I opened the next 9 clips, all from mid-January. All showed the same thing: Vanessa arriving alone, staying 2 or 3 days, then leaving. She didn't smile, didn't linger, just moved through the house like someone checking items off a list. Then I opened clip 11. February 8th, 2025, 10:47 a.m. A truck pulled into the driveway. Matte black. Dodge Ram 2500 crew cab. It parked beside the CR-V. A man got out. Tall, maybe 6'2", broad shoulders, short beard, left arm covered in a dark tattoo sleeve. He wore a flannel shirt, jeans, work boots. Vanessa came out to meet him, and he kissed her. Not on the cheek, on the mouth. I watched the rest in silence. Clips 12 through 40 showed them moving in together, February through May. The man carried boxes from the truck. Vanessa swept the porch. They repainted the front door from navy to burgundy. They replaced Ethan's hand-carved sign, Cottonwood Ranch, with a new one that read V and K Ranch in iron lettering. She was erasing him. Clips 41 through 60 were from June. A horse trailer arrived, long aluminum, worth maybe $40,000. A week later, a chestnut quarter horse was unloaded into the barn. I'd seen enough auctions to guess. 50, maybe 55,000. That was $95,000 on a ranch she didn't own, with money that wasn't hers. Clips 61 through 89 covered the summer and fall. Vanessa and the man hosted friends for a barbecue. They rode the horse together across the pasture. They sat by a fire pit, drinking, laughing. In clip 87, dated March 3rd, 2025, Vanessa raised her right hand to brush hair from her face. On her fourth finger was a wide silver ring set with a turquoise stone, not her wedding band. A new ring. I didn't stop. I watched all 89 clips. It took me 9 hours. By the time I reached the end, the sky outside my kitchen window was turning gray. It was 6:18 a.m. I sat there, staring at the screen. 16 months. She'd lived there for 16 months. With him. As if Ethan had never existed. As if the ranch had always been theirs. I saved every clip to a USB drive. Then I backed them up to my own cloud account. Then I printed a list of all 89 timestamps and saved it as a PDF. I wasn't going to let this disappear. At 7:42 a.m., I picked up my phone and called the one person who could help me fight this. Robert Mitchell, my attorney, and one of the few people left in this world I still trusted. He answered on the third ring. "Gerald, I need to see you," I said. "Today." "What's going on?" I looked at the screen, at the frozen image of Vanessa and the stranger standing on my son's porch smiling like newlyweds. "I found something," I said, "and I need your help to take back what's mine." I started with clip 1. I told myself I'd watch just a few, enough to confirm what I'd seen enough to understand. Then I'd call someone, but once I started, I couldn't stop. Clips 1 to 10, January 15th to January 28th, 2025. The first clip was dated 3 weeks after Ethan's funeral, January 15th, a Tuesday morning. Vanessa's silver Honda CR-V pulled into the driveway. She got out, carrying a canvas tote bag, walked to the front door, unlocked it, and went inside. 43 minutes later, smoke rose from the chimney. She was using the fireplace. She stayed 2 days. I watched her come and go, carrying groceries, sitting on the porch with coffee. She didn't smile. She looked like a woman who needed to be alone. I wanted to believe that. The next clips followed the same pattern. January 18th. Vanessa arrived, stayed 1 night. January 22nd. Same. January 25th. 3 nights. I might have let it go. But then came clip 11. Clip February 11th, 2025, Saturday morning. 10:47. The black Dodge Ram 2500 pulled into the driveway and parked beside Vanessa's Honda. Matte black, oversized tires, Montana plates. A man stepped out. Early 40s, 6'2", broad shoulders. Faded jeans, work boots, gray thermal shirt. Dark hair graying at the temples, trimmed beard tattoo sleeve on his left forearm. He walked to the porch. The door opened before he reached it. Vanessa stepped out. She smiled, not a polite smile. A smile that said she'd been expecting him. He climbed the steps, put his hand on her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss, the kind of kiss you give someone you've been with for a long time. I watched the timestamp. 4 seconds. When they pulled apart, she laughed. They went inside together. The Dodge Ram stayed until the next morning. Clips 12 to 40. February to May, 2025. I kept clicking, the clips blurred together. February 12th. The man was back. 3 nights. February 20th. The man working on the barn roof. Vanessa handing him tools. February 28th. Both vehicles in the driveway. They were living there. March 5th. The man mowing the lawn. Vanessa on the porch, steps smiling. March 10th. Unloading boxes from the Dodge Ram. Furniture. Lamps, supplies. Moving in. March 18th. The man painting the front door. Ethan had painted it navy blue. Margaret's favorite color, the color of Montana skies. I watched him cover it with deep burgundy 2 coats. Vanessa held the paint can. When he finished, she kissed him. March 22nd. The man climbed a ladder at the gate, unscrewed the wooden sign Ethan had carved. Cottonwood Ranch, established 2020. He handed it down to Vanessa. She set it face down on the ground. He pulled a new sign from his truck, cheap stamped metal, and bolted it to the pillars. V and K Ranch. V for Vanessa, K for who I didn't know his name. But I was going to find out. Clips 41 to 60. June 2025. June 14th. Camera 4. A white Ford F. 3.5. O pulled onto the property towing a horse trailer. brand new gleaming aluminum. I'd priced trailers like that before. $35,000, $40,000. The truck stopped near the stables. The man signed paperwork. The delivery driver unhooked the trailer and left. Vanessa came out, ran her hand along the trailer's side. Smiled. The man put his arm around her shoulders. I zoomed in, etched into the aluminum V and K. 5 days later, June 19th, another delivery. A livestock trailer pulled up. Inside are a quarter horse, buckskin mare, young and healthy. The man led her down the ramp calm and easy. Vanessa watched from the stable door. When the mare was settled, Vanessa handed the man a beer. He kissed her forehead. I looked up the going rate for a trained quarter horse in Montana, $50,000 to $60,000. Trailer, $40,000. Horse, $55,000. $95,000. Where the hell did they get that kind of money? Clips, 61 to 89. September 2024 to April 2025. The later clips were harder to watch. September 3rd. A barbecue. 6 people around the fire pit, drinking, laughing. Vanessa playing hostess, gesturing at the ranch like it was hers, like Ethan had never existed. October 12th, Vanessa and the man riding horses down to the creek. He put his arm around her. She leaned into him. November 8th. The two of them stringing Christmas lights along the porch. Vanessa laughing as the man untangled the cord. Easy, comfortable, like they'd been together for years. December 15th. Light snow falling. The man splitting firewood. Vanessa bringing him coffee. He set down the axe, kissed her. Snowflakes in her hair. I thought of Ethan splitting that same firewood a year earlier. I thought of him trusting her. The last clip I watched closely was number 87, March 3rd, 2025, 11 seconds long, camera 6, midday bright sun. Vanessa and the man stood in the driveway talking. She gestured toward the barn, laughed, and then I saw it. On her right-hand fourth finger, a silver ring, wide-band turquoise stone. Not her wedding ring. Ethan had given her gold with a small diamond. I'd been with him when he bought it. This ring was new. The man had given it to her. I paused the video. Zoomed in. 16 months. My son had been dead for 16 months, and she was wearing another man's ring. I closed the laptop. The kitchen was still dark. The clock read 6:18 a.m. I'd been watching for 9 hours. I sat there, hands flat on the table. I thought about calling the sheriff, but what would I say? It wasn't a crime, not yet. Trespassing maybe, squatting. Nothing that would get them arrested. I needed more than video. I needed to know who the man was. I needed to know where they got $95,000. I needed to know if this had started before Ethan died. I needed a lawyer. I stood up. I poured the last of the coffee down the sink. I walked to my desk, pulled out a USB drive, and copied all 89 clips onto it. I saved a second copy to the cloud. At 7:42 a.m., I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew could help me, Robert Mitchell, a state attorney, my friend for 25 years. He answered on the third ring. Gerald, it's early. You okay? I looked at the laptop still open on the kitchen table, the frozen image of Vanessa and the man smiling in Ethan's driveway. No, I said, I'm not, and I need your help. I heard him take a breath on the other end of the line. What's going on, Gerald? I looked at the laptop still open on the kitchen table, the frozen image of Vanessa and the man, standing in my son's driveway, the turquoise ring on her finger. Vanessa's living at the ranch, I said, with a man I don't know. They've been there for months, maybe longer. Silence. 10 seconds. Then Robert's voice sharp and focused. How do you know? Ethan's security cameras, 89 video clips, 16 months of footage. I watched it all last night. Another pause. I could almost hear him thinking. Gerald, listen to me. Don't go back to the ranch. Don't call Vanessa. Don't do anything until we talk. Can you be at my office at 10 this morning? Yes. Bring everything. The videos, the utility bills, Ethan's will. See, anything you have. We'll figure this out. Robert, this is a state fraud, Gerald, possibly criminal. But we have to do this right. 10 o'clock, I'll be ready. He hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone in my hand. Then I stood up, walked to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. Red eyes, gray stubble, a man who hadn't slept in 36 hours. I looked like hell, but I had work to do. Robert Mitchell's office sat on the third floor of a brick building 2 blocks from the Yellowstone County Courthouse. I'd been there a dozen times over the years. When Margaret died, when we set up Ethan's education trust, when I updated my own will. The waiting room hadn't changed: leather chairs, old law books on shelves, a framed photograph of the Montana Supreme Court. Robert's secretary, a woman named Claire who'd worked for him 20 years, waved me straight through. Robert was waiting behind his desk, 61 years old, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a navy suit that looked like it cost more than my truck. He stood when I walked in, shook my hand, gestured to the chair across from him. "Coffee?" "I've had enough." He sat down, folded his hands on the desk. "Tell me everything." I did. I told him about the $412 electric bill, the drive to the ranch, the lights in the windows, the cameras, the 89 clips, Vanessa arriving alone in January, the man showing up in February, the two of them living together, repainting the door, changing the sign, buying a horse and a trailer for $95,000. Robert listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know who the man is?" "No, but I'm going to find out." "Do you have the footage with you?" I pulled the USB drive from my jacket pocket and set it on his desk. Then I handed him the electric bill, a copy of Ethan's will, and a printed summary I'd made of the clip timestamps. Robert plugged in the USB drive and opened the first video. I watched him watch it. The January 15th clip, Vanessa arriving at the ranch, unlocking the door, going inside like she owned the place. He clicked through several more. The kiss on February 8th. The door being repainted in March. The V and K sign going up. The horse trailer delivery in June. He stopped on the clip from March 3rd, the one with the turquoise ring. He zoomed in, studied it, then closed the video player. "This is bad, Gerald." "I know. The ranch is Ethan's separate property. You're the sole beneficiary under his will. Vanessa has no legal claim to it. She knows that. And yet she's been living there, with another man, for at least 4 months, possibly longer." 16 months, I said, if you count the times she went there alone. Robert nodded slowly. "Which means she's been trespassing, possibly squatting, and if she's been using estate funds to pay for utilities or for that horse and trailer, that's fraud." "So what do we do?" He took off his glasses, cleaned them with a cloth from his desk drawer, put them back on. 3 steps, he said. "First, we investigate the financials. I'll contact the insurance company, the utility providers, the banks. I'll request records for any accounts in Ethan's name or the estate's name. If Vanessa has been accessing those accounts without authorization, we'll find out. Second, we identify the man. I'll hire a private investigator, someone good, someone discreet. We'll get his name, his background, his relationship to Vanessa. We need to know if this affair started before Ethan died or after." I felt my jaw tighten. "You think it started before?" "I don't know, but if it did, it changes everything." Third, we file a petition in probate court. We ask the judge to remove Vanessa from the property, freeze any estate accounts, and appoint an independent administrator to oversee the estate until it's closed. We ask for a full accounting of all estate assets and expenditures, and if we find evidence of fraud or embezzlement, we refer it to the county prosecutor. He leaned forward, his eyes steady on mine. "This is going to take time, Gerald. Weeks, maybe longer." The court moves slowly, and Vanessa will fight back. She'll hire a lawyer. She'll delay. She'll try to claim she has some right to the property. We have to be patient. We have to be thorough. And most importantly, you cannot confront her. No phone calls, no visits to the ranch, no contact of any kind. If you do, it could jeopardize the case. Do you understand? I nodded. I understand. Good. I'll get started today. I'll call you as soon as I have anything. I stood up. Robert walked me to the door, put a hand on my shoulder. We're going to get the ranch back, Gerald. None, I promise you that. It's not just about the ranch, I said. He looked at me, waiting. It's about Ethan, about what he built, about the fact that she erased him like he never existed. Robert's expression softened. I know, and we're going to make it right. I drove home in silence. The sun was high now, the sky bright and cloudless. I passed the grocery store where Margaret used to shop, the park where I'd taught Ethan to ride a bike, the intersection where I'd waited every Friday night for him to come home from the ranch tired and happy and covered in sawdust. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat there, 36 hours without sleep. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I went inside, walked to my bedroom, and lay down on top of the blankets. I stared at the ceiling, at the crack that ran from the corner to the light fixture, the crack Margaret had always said we should fix but never did. I thought about Ethan, about the last time I'd seen him alive, a Sunday afternoon in November, 2 months before he died. We'd been working on the barn roof at the ranch replacing shingles. He'd been happy that day, talking about the future, about the horses he wanted to buy, the garden he wanted to plant, the life he was building, and Vanessa had been in Billings claiming she had a work deadline. How long had she been lying to him? How long had she been planning this? I closed my eyes. "I'll get it back, son," I whispered to the empty room. "I promise." I fell asleep before I could say anything else. I woke to my phone ringing. The room was dark. I fumbled for the phone, squinted at the screen. Robert Mitchell. 9:47 p.m. I'd slept 12 hours. I answered. "Robert." His voice was tight, controlled, the voice of a man who'd found something he didn't want to find. "Gerald, we need to talk. Tomorrow morning. My office, 8 o'clock. "What did you find?" A pause. Then, something that changes everything. 3 days. I waited 3 days for Robert to call back. They were the longest 3 days of my life. I couldn't sleep more than a few hours at a time. I couldn't eat. I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, willing it to ring. I'd check my email every 10 minutes. I'd drive past Robert's office building just to see if the lights were on. I knew he was working. He'd sent me a text on the morning of April 7th making progress. "Need more time? We'll call soon." But soon felt like forever. On the afternoon of April 9th at 2:15 p.m., my phone finally rang. "Robert Mitchell," I answered before the second ring. "Robert." "Gerald." His voice was tight, controlled. "I found something. You should sit down." I was already sitting. "Tell me." "It's bad. Worse than I thought." "Just tell me." I heard him take a breath. Then he started talking. "The life insurance policy. I contacted Ethan's life insurance company," Robert said. "North Star Life. Ethan took out the policy 6 years ago, right after he started his engineering job. Original coverage $250,000. Beneficiary you." I already knew that. Ethan had told me about the policy when he bought it. He'd wanted to make sure I was taken care of if anything happened to him. But, Robert continued, in April of last year, April 15th, 2024 to be exact, the policy was amended. Coverage was increased to $750,000, and the beneficiary was changed. My stomach tightened. Changed to who? Vanessa Cole, Ethan's wife. I closed my eyes. $750,000, 3 times the original amount. 8 months before Ethan died. "The insurance company has a signed authorization form on file," Robert said. "It's supposed to be signed by the primary beneficiary. That's you, giving consent to the change. The form has your signature on it." "I never signed anything." "I know. I pulled your notarized signature from your will, from Margaret's estate documents, from the deed to your house. I sent copies to a forensic document examiner, a woman I've worked with before. Very good. She compared them to the signature on the insurance form. And it's a forgery, Gerald, not even a good one. Whoever signed that form tried to copy your signature, but they got the slant wrong, the pressure wrong, the loop on the capital H wrong. It's not yours." I felt my hands start to shake. I set the phone on the table, put it on speaker. "Vanessa forged my signature." "Yes, and she used it to steal $750,000. "Did she collect?" A pause. "Yes. The policy paid out in full on January 12th. 2 weeks after Ethan's funeral, the check was deposited into a bank account in Vanessa's name. $750,000, 2 weeks after my son was buried. I stared at the wall, my mind racing. Vanessa had increased the policy 8 months before Ethan died. She'd forged my signature. She'd made herself the sole beneficiary. And then, 2 weeks after the funeral, after she'd stood beside his casket and cried, and told me she couldn't bear to go back to the ranch, she'd cashed the check. "There's more," Robert said. "The estate credit account. In late April of this year, April 22nd to be exact, someone opened a credit account in the name of Ethan's estate. It's called an estate credit account. Basically, it's a line of credit extended to the estate to cover expenses while the estate is being settled. Funeral costs, property maintenance, legal fees, that kind of thing." I never authorized that. I know. Estate credit accounts have to be approved by the probate court. This one wasn't. Someone submitted fraudulent documents to the credit company. A copy of Ethan's death certificate, a forged letter of administration claiming Vanessa was the estate's executor, and a fake court order approving the account. The credit company didn't verify any of it. They just opened the account. And how much is $60,000 credit limit? I felt my jaw tighten. How much has been spent? $47,324.18. He said it slowly, precisely like he wanted me to hear every number. What did she spend it on? I pulled the transaction records. Let me read you the highlights. I heard papers rustling on his end. May 14th, 2024. Payment to Big Sky Trailers, Bozeman, Montana. $38,000. Purchase of a dual-axle aluminum horse trailer. The trailer I'd seen in the video. The one with V and K etched into the side. June 19th, 2024. Payment to Yellowstone Quarter Horses, Livingston, Montana. $55,000. Purchase of a 3-year-old buckskin mare trained for ranch work. The horse. The one the man had led into the stables while Vanessa watched. Wait, I said. You said the credit limit was $60,000. How did she spend $55,000 on the horse if she'd already spent $38,000 on the trailer? Good question. She maxed out the estate account with the trailer purchase. For the horse, she used a personal credit card in her name. Capital One, $17,000 limit. Then, 2 weeks later, she transferred $17,000 from the estate account to her personal checking account and paid off the card. Essentially, she laundered estate funds through her own credit card to cover the purchase. I felt a cold rage settling in my chest. What else? Smaller purchases, June 22nd, $4,000. $324 to Billings Home Supply. Lumber paint hardware, repairs to the barn and the house. July 8th, $250 to Montana. Feed and tack. August 3rd, $900 to a furniture store in Bozeman. September 15th, $600 to a liquor store. She's been living off the estate for almost a year. Yes, and every transaction is fraud. She had no legal authority to open that account. She had no right to spend those funds. It's embezzlement, Gerald. Felony embezzlement. Utilities and property transfer. There's more, Robert said. On March 10th of this year, Vanessa contacted Northern Montana, Power Mountain West, Water and Summit Propane. She submitted change of account forms transferring the utility accounts for Cottonwood Ranch from Ethan's name to hers. She can't do that. Legally, no, not without probate approval. But the utility companies didn't know that. She sent them a copy of Ethan's death certificate and a letter claiming she was his widow and the property was hers. They processed the changes without question. And the property transfer. On March 29th, Vanessa filed a petition in Silver Point County Probate Court requesting transfer of ownership of Cottonwood Ranch from Ethan's estate to her name. She's claiming widow's homestead exemption, a Montana law that allows a surviving spouse to keep the family home, even if the deceased's will says otherwise. But the ranch wasn't the family home. It was Ethan's separate property. Exactly. The homestead exemption only applies to marital property, property acquired during the marriage. Ethan bought the ranch with his inheritance from Margaret before he married Vanessa. It's separate property clearly defined in his will. Vanessa has no claim to it. Then so the petition will be denied. It should be, but it hasn't been processed yet. It's sitting in a queue at the courthouse. If we hadn't started investigating, if you hadn't found those videos, the petition might have gone through unopposed, and once the title transferred, it would take months, maybe years, to reverse it. I sat back in my chair. My head was pounding. Vanessa had forged my signature. She'd stolen $750,000. She'd opened a fraudulent credit account and spent $47,000 on horses and trailers and furniture. She'd transferred the utilities. She'd filed a petition to steal the ranch. And she'd done all of it while living in my son's house with another man. What do we do? I asked. We fight back, Robert said. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing a counterpetition in probate court. I'm asking the judge to deny Vanessa's property transfer request, to freeze the estate credit account, to reverse the utility transfers, and to appoint an independent estate administrator. I'm also requesting a full accounting. Every transaction, every dollar, every receipt. And I'm referring the insurance fraud and the embezzlement to the county prosecutor. This is criminal Gerald. She's going to face charges. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Good, But I need one more thing. What? The identity of the man in those videos. If he's involved, if he knew about the fraud, if he benefited from it, he's an accomplice. And if this affair started before Ethan died, it could establish motive, premeditation. We need to know who he is. I'll find out, I said. How? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. There was a pause. Then Robert said quietly, "Be careful, Gerald. If this man is involved in fraud, or worse, he's dangerous." "I'll be careful. Call me when you have something." "I will." I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. $750,000. $47,000? $324. A forged signature. A stolen life. A son erased. I thought about Vanessa standing beside Ethan's grave crying. I thought about her voice on the phone saying, "I can't go back to the ranch. Too many memories." Every word had been a lie. I stood up, walked to my desk, and opened my laptop. I didn't know how I was going to find the man's identity, but I knew someone who did. It took 2 weeks, and what I found linked him to Vanessa long before Ethan ever died. Robert made the call that same afternoon. "I know someone," he said. "Dr. Lisa Monroe, digital forensics expert. Spent 15 years with the FBI's cyber crimes unit before she went private. She's worked on cases for me before. Fraud, embezzlement, contested estates. If there's anything on Ethan's devices, she'll find it. How long will it take? Depends on what we give her. A week, maybe 2. Can you get me Ethan's laptop? His phone." I thought back to the day I'd driven out to the ranch 3 weeks after the funeral. I'd gone inside, walked through the cold, empty rooms, and packed up a few of Ethan's things. His high school yearbook, a framed photo of him and Margaret, his laptop from the workshop. I'd told myself I was preserving his memory. Now I realized I'd been preserving evidence. "I have them," I said. "I'll bring them tomorrow." The next morning I met Robert at his office. He introduced me to Dr. Lisa Monroe over a video call. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed and no nonsense, sitting in front of a wall lined with servers and monitors. She wore a gray blazer, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her voice was calm, precise. The voice of someone who'd spent years testifying in courtrooms. "Mr. Hutchison," she said, "I understand you need a digital reconstruction, phone, laptop, cloud accounts, deleted files, texts, social media. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Do you have the devices with you?" I held up the laptop, a silver MacBook Air 4 years old covered in a thin layer of dust. Then the phone, Ethan's iPhone 12, the screen cracked from the accident. The Montana Highway Patrol had returned it to me 2 weeks after the crash, along with his wallet and his wedding ring. "Good," Dr. Monroe said. "I'll also need access to any cloud accounts, iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, social media. If you have passwords, that speeds things up. If not, I can work around it." Robert handed me a sheet of paper. "Gerald, write down anything you know. Ethan's email, his Apple ID, anything he might have used." I wrote what I could remember. Ethan had given me his iCloud password years ago when he'd first set up the ranch security cameras. "Just in case something happens, Dad," he'd said. "You'll need to be able to access everything." I'd never imagined I'd use it like this. Dr. Monroe reviewed the list. "This is good. I'll start with the laptop and phone, pull whatever's on local storage. Then I'll access the cloud backups, texts, photos, app data. If your daughter-in-law deleted anything, there's a good chance it's still cached somewhere. People think delete means gone. It doesn't." "How long?" I asked. "A week, maybe 2 if the data's heavily fragmented. I'll send preliminary findings as I go." "Thank you." She nodded. "One more thing, Mr. Hutchison. Whatever I find, it might be hard to see. If there's evidence of infidelity or fraud or worse, you need to be prepared." "I'm prepared," I said. I wasn't. But I would be. 11 days later, on April 25th, Dr. Monroe sent her preliminary report. I was sitting at my kitchen table when the email arrived. The subject line read, "Hutchison Case, Initial Findings." I opened it. The body of the email was brief. "Mr. Hutchison/Mr. Mitchell. Attached is my initial forensic report, 47 pages. Key findings summarized below. Please call at your earliest convenience to discuss next steps. Dr. Lisa Monroe." I downloaded the PDF, 47 pages. I started reading. Page 3, deleted social media accounts. Subject, Vanessa Marie Cole, née Vanessa Marie, Harris Platform. Instagram, @vanessa.cole/Facebook, Vanessa Cole. Status accounts deactivated. January 18th, 2025, 21 days, post-funeral. Recovery method, cache data retrieved from subject Ethan Hutchison's laptop, browser history Chrome version 118, Instagram posts archived via auto-sync feature linked to Ethan's iCloud photos, key finding concert photograph, Bozeman, Montana. I scrolled down, there it was. A photo, dated July 15th, 2023, 17 months before Ethan died. The image showed Vanessa and a man standing close together at an outdoor concert. The man was in his early 40s, tall, wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. He had a trim beard, sunglasses, and a tattoo sleeve on his left arm. His right arm was around Vanessa's waist. She was leaning into him, smiling. The caption read, "Summer Nights." 89 likes, 12 comments, all deleted but not gone. I stared at the photo. July 15th, 2023. A year and a half before the accident. 5 months before Ethan and Vanessa's second wedding anniversary. She'd posted it publicly. She hadn't even tried to hide it. I kept reading. Page 9, reverse image search. Subject identification using Google Reverse. Image search and TinEye. The male subject in the concert photograph was cross-referenced against publicly available social media profiles. Match found. Kyle Andrew Brennan. Instagram at @KyleBrennan_fit location Billings. Is Montana occupation, personal trainer/fitness coach. Age, 42. DOB, March 14th, 1983. Profile activity active as of April 2025. 1,247 followers. Posts include fitness content, client testimonials, outdoor recreation, hiking, fishing, and personal photos. No direct mentions of Vanessa Cole in public posts. I opened a new browser tab, typed in the Instagram handle. Kyle Brennan's profile loaded. The profile picture showed a man in a gym arms crossed, smiling confidently. The same man from the concert photo. The same man from the 89 video clips. I scrolled through his posts. Photos of clients lifting weights, motivational quotes, pictures of him fly fishing on the Yellowstone River, a shot of a black Dodge Ram with the caption, "New ride, let's go." Dated February 2024. I went back to the report. Page 14. Deleted text messages, recovery method, iCloud backup, subject Ethan Hutchison's account, auto-sync enabled for messages app, deleted conversations cached in backup files dated August 2023 to December 2024, key conversations, Vanessa Cole to Kyle Brennan. Note, conversations were deleted from active message threads but remained in cloud backup storage. Metadata timestamps, sender/recipient data intact. I turned to the next page. Doctor. Monroe had transcribed the messages in a clean chronological format. August 12th, 2023, 16 months before Ethan's death. Vanessa, he'll never let me go. The ranch, this life, it's all about him and his father. Kyle, so make it about us. April 18th, 2024. 8 months before Ethan's death, Vanessa, I increased the policy. $750,000. If something happens, we're set. Kyle, you're brilliant. December 8th, 2024, 2 weeks before Ethan's death. Vanessa, I'm working on it. Kyle, when Vanessa? Soon. I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. I set the report down on the table, stood up, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on my face. I'm working on it. When soon? 2 weeks later. Ethan was dead. I picked up my phone and called Robert. He answered on the second ring. Gerald, you got the report. I got it. What do you think? I looked at the open PDF on my laptop screen, the concert photo, the text messages, the timestamps. I think Vanessa and Kyle planned this, I said. I think they planned it for over a year. I think they increased the insurance, talked about something happening. And 2 weeks later, Ethan's truck went off the road. I agree, Robert said quietly. This is premeditation, Gerald. This is murder. We need to go to the police. We will, but we need one more thing. What? Proof that Kyle and Vanessa were together before the funeral. The The concert photo is from 2023. The text messages stop in December 2024, 2 weeks before Ethan died. But we need evidence that they were together immediately after, that they didn't wait a respectful amount of time, that this wasn't grief or coincidence. We need someone who saw them, a witness. I thought about the 89 video clips. The earliest one was January 15th, 3 weeks after the funeral. Vanessa alone. The first clip with Kyle was February 8th. There's nothing on the cameras before February, I said. I know, but maybe someone else saw something. A neighbor, a delivery driver, someone who can testify that Vanessa and Kyle were together before she was supposed to be grieving. I was quiet for a moment. Then I remembered. The ranch was remote. The nearest neighbor was over a mile away through the trees. But there was a neighbor, an older woman. I'd seen her once years ago walking her dog along the creek. Ethan had mentioned her, said she kept to herself, but she was friendly. There's a neighbor, I said. I don't know her name, but she lives near the ranch. If anyone saw anything, it would be her. Find her, Robert said. Talk to her. See what she knows. I will. I hung up. I looked at the report one more time. 47 pages. 17 months of evidence. A concert in July 2023. Text messages about insurance policies and working on it. A man named Kyle Brennan, personal trainer, age 42, living in Billings. And my son, dead at 36. His truck wrapped around a cottonwood tree on a cold December afternoon. The proof came from someone I'd never met. A neighbor who'd been watching the ranch for 16 months. The call came late on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the kitchen drying coffee mugs when my phone buzzed. The screen showed an unfamiliar Montana number, a 406 area code, but not one I recognized. Mr. Hutchison. The voice was older, soft but deliberate. A woman. Yes. Who is this? My name is Martha Kerrigan. I live up on Old Pine Road about a mile and a half from your son's ranch. I set the mug down carefully. Go on. I saw something back in December, Christmas morning. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I've been hearing talk around town that you're looking into. What happened to Ethan, and to that property? I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. What did you see? There was a pause. Then she said, a man, at the ranch, with your daughter-in-law, 3 days before the funeral. The next morning, Robert and I drove out to 142 Old Pine Road. It was a narrow dirt lane that climbed into the foothills west of the ranch, winding between Douglas firs and wild sage. At the end sat a small log cabin with a green tin roof and a hand-carved mailbox that read, Kerrigan. Martha met us on the porch. She was 73, she told me on the phone. But she moved like someone 20 years younger. She wore a flannel shirt, faded jeans, and hiking boots. Her hair was silver, pulled into a loose braid, and her eyes were a sharp pale blue. Mr. Hutchison, she said, shaking my hand. I'm glad you came. Robert introduced himself. Martha nodded and gestured toward 2 wooden chairs. Sit, I'll make this quick. We sat. The morning air smelled like pine resin and damp earth. Martha folded her arms. I knew your son. Not well, but well enough to say hello when I saw him at the feed store. He was kind, respectful, the sort of young man who'd stop to help you load a bale of hay into your truck bed without being asked. I swallowed. He was. She nodded. I didn't know his wife, but I saw her plenty. She never waved, never stopped, always in a hurry. Robert leaned forward. Mrs. Kerrigan, you mentioned Christmas Day. Yes. She looked at me. It was the 25th of December, 3 days after Ethan died. I was up early that morning around 6:30 making coffee. I liked to sit by the window and watch the sunrise over the ridge. She pointed south, toward a line of low hills that overlooked Ethan's property. That's when I saw the truck. What kind of truck? Robert asked. A Dodge Ram, big one, matte black crew cab. It was parked in the driveway of your son's house. I felt my pulse quicken. What time? It was there when I looked at 6:30, still there at 7, still there at 8. Oh, did you see who was driving? Martha nodded. Around 10:30 I saw him come out. Him, a man, tall, maybe 6'2", muscular build, short beard. He had tattoos on his left arm, a full-sleeve dark ink. I couldn't make out the design from that distance, but it covered his whole forearm. I exchanged a glance with Robert. Kyle Brennan? What did he do? I asked. Martha's expression hardened. He walked to the porch. Your daughter-in-law came out to meet him, and he kissed her. The silence stretched. "Not on the cheek," Martha added. "On the forehead, the way a husband kisses a wife." Robert pulled out a notepad. "How long did he stay?" "Until around 12:40. I saw the truck pull out just after lunch." "Did you tell anyone?" She shook her head. "I didn't know what to say. Ethan had just died. I thought maybe the man was a friend or family, but then I heard through the grapevine. You know how small towns are, that you were filing something in probate court, that there were questions about the estate, so I thought maybe what I saw mattered." Robert looked up. "It matters, Mrs. Kerrigan. A great deal." I asked, "Did you notice anything else?" Martha hesitated. Then she said, "She was wearing a ring on her right hand, fourth finger, silver band, wide with a turquoise stone set in the center. I noticed it because it caught the light when she lifted her hand to touch his face." My chest tightened. The same ring from the videos. Robert made a note. "Mrs. Kerrigan, would you be willing to testify to this under oath in court?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes. You understand that means being cross-examined. A lawyer will question you, try to poke holes in your story." Martha's blue eyes were steady. "I know what I saw, Mr. Mitchell, and I'm not afraid to say it." We left 20 minutes later. As Robert drove us back toward Billings, he was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "That's the missing piece." "What do you mean?" "We have video evidence showing Vanessa and Kyle living together after the funeral. We have digital evidence texts. Social media showing a relationship that started back in July of 2023. But we didn't have proof that they were together before Ethan was buried." He tapped the steering wheel. "Now we do. Martha saw them on Christmas morning, 3 days after Ethan died, 3 days before the funeral. That's not grieving. That's not coincidence. That's premeditation." I stared out the window at the planes rolling past. Robert said, "We file the probate petition next week, and we call Martha as a witness." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of water I didn't drink. I thought about Martha Kerrigan, a woman I'd never met until this morning, who had no reason to get involved, who could have stayed silent. But she didn't. She called, she spoke, she remembered. And because of that, the picture was finally complete. Vanessa and Kyle weren't just lovers. They weren't just opportunists. They were accomplices. And 3 weeks from now, I would walk into a Silver Point County courtroom and prove it. The Silver Point County Courthouse sat on Main Street like a monument to old Montana red brick white columns and a copper-roofed clock tower that had marked time since 1911. I climbed the granite steps at 9:15 on the morning of May 6th, 2025, with Robert Mitchell beside me and a leather folder tucked under my arm. Inside was everything. The USB drive with 89 video clips, the forged insurance form, the estate credit statements, the utility transfers, and Martha Kerrigan's signed affidavit. We walked through security and down a long hallway to courtroom 3. The bailiff opened the door. "Case 2-025-PR-1847. In the matter of the estate of Ethan Hutchison." I stepped inside. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, high windows, rows of oak benches. At the front sat Judge Carolyn Foster, late 50s gray hair pulled into a tight bun, gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. She had a reputation. 18 years on the bench, fair but unforgiving of lies. Robert and I took our seats at the petitioner's table on the left. Across the aisle sat Vanessa. She wore a charcoal blazer white blouse and black slacks. Her hair was neatly styled. She looked composed, calm, like a woman who had nothing to hide. Beside her sat her attorney Douglas Harmon, early 40s sharp suit, polished shoes, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, one hand resting on a stack of papers, as if this were routine. Judge Foster tapped her gavel once. "We're on the record. Mr. Mitchell, you filed the petition. Proceed." Robert stood. "Thank you, Your Honor." He walked to the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back. "Your Honor, this case concerns a pattern of deliberate fraud committed against the estate of Ethan Hutchison, who died on December 22, 2024, in a single-vehicle accident on Highway 90. He paused. Ethan left behind a lawful will, executed and notarized in November of 2022, naming his father, Gerald Hutchison, as the sole beneficiary of his most valuable asset, Cottonwood Ranch, a 22-acre property in Silver Point County. Judge Foster made a note. Robert continued. The respondent, Vanessa Cole, was Ethan's widow, but she was not entitled to the ranch. Under Montana, law property purchased with premarital inheritance funds is classified as separate property. It does not become marital property upon marriage, and it cannot be claimed under homestead exemption. Harmon shifted in his seat but said nothing. Robert's voice hardened. Despite this, Ms. Cole has engaged in a systematic effort to defraud the estate and seize assets to which she has no legal claim. He lifted a folder. On April 15th, 2024, 8 months before Ethan's death, the beneficiary on Ethan's life insurance policy was changed from Gerald Hutchison to Vanessa Cole. The policy value was increased from $250,000 to $750,000. He pulled out a sheet of paper and held it up. This is the beneficiary transfer form submitted to the insurance company. It bears the signature of Gerald Hutchison, the original beneficiary consenting to the change. He turned to me. Mr. Hutchison, did you sign this form? I stood. No, sir, I did not. Robert nodded. He placed the forged form on the overhead projector. The signature appeared on the screen behind him, slanted, uneven, clearly rushed. Then he placed a second document beside it, my notarized signature from Ethan's will. The difference was obvious. Your Honor, Robert said, the signature on the insurance form is a forgery. Judge Foster leaned forward, studying the screen. She said nothing, but her pen moved quickly across her notepad. Robert moved to the next exhibit. On April 22, 2025, 4 months after Ethan's death, an estate credit account was opened in Ethan's name at First National Bank of Billings. The account had a credit limit of $60,000. He pulled out a bank statement. Within 6 weeks, $47,324.18 was withdrawn. The funds were used to purchase a horse trailer for $38,000, a quarter horse for $55,000, and various home furnishings. Judge Foster looked up. $55,000 exceeds the credit limit. Correct, Your Honor. The shortfall was paid using Ms. Cole's personal credit card. The estate account reimbursed her 3 weeks later. Harmon stood. Objection, Your Honor. These purchases were made in good faith to maintain the property. Ms. Cole believed she had a legal right to access estate funds as the surviving spouse. Judge Foster's gaze sharpened. Did Ms. Cole seek court approval before opening this account? Harmon hesitated. No, Your Honor, but then the account was opened unlawfully. She turned to Robert. Continue. Robert presented the utility transfers next. On March 10, 2025, Vanessa had transferred the electric, water, and gas accounts from Ethan's name to her own without notifying Gerald, without probate approval. Then he showed the property transfer petition filed March 29, 2025. Ms. Cole claimed a widow's homestead exemption, Robert said. But as I've stated, the ranch is separate property. It was purchased in May of 2020 with funds Ethan inherited from his mother, Margaret Hutchison, who died in early 2020. Ethan was not yet married. He placed a copy of the deed on the projector. The purchase date was clear May 14, 2020. Ethan's marriage license showed a date of June 18, 2021. More than a year later, Judge Foster made another note. She looked at Vanessa. Ms. Cole, did you sign your father-in-law's name to the insurance beneficiary form? Vanessa's face went pale. She glanced at Harmon. Ms. Cole, the judge repeated. Answer the question. Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. No, Your Honor. Then who did? Silence. Judge Foster waited. 10 seconds, 20. Finally, she said, We'll return to that. Mr. Mitchell, do you have further evidence? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Gerald Hutchison to the stand. I walked to the witness box. The bailiff held out a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. I sat down. Robert approached. Mr. Hutchison, can you describe your relationship with your son, Ethan? He was my only child. His mother, Margaret, passed away in early 2020. Ethan and I were close. I saw him every few weeks. Then he trusted me. Did Ethan ever discuss his will with you? Yes. In November of 2022, he told me he'd updated it. He wanted the ranch to go to me if anything happened to him. He said it was his way of honoring his mother's memory. She'd left him the money to buy it. Did he mention Vanessa? He said she was fine with it. The ranch was bought before they married. She understood it wasn't hers. Robert nodded. Did you ever give Vanessa permission to access estate funds, open credit accounts, or transfer utilities? No. Did you sign the insurance beneficiary form shown earlier? No. When did you first learn that someone was living at the ranch? I looked at Vanessa. April 5th, 2025, when I received a $412 electric bill for a property that had been vacant for 16 months. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Robert said, "Thank you, Mr. Hutchison." Harmon stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Hutchison, isn't it true that you and Ms. Cole had a strained relationship?" "No, I had no reason to suspect her of anything until I saw the evidence." "But you didn't attend family gatherings. You rarely visited." "I visited when I was invited. Ethan came to see me." Harmon's smile tightened. No further questions. Judge Foster looked at the clock. It was 11:42 a.m. "We'll recess until tomorrow morning at 9. Mr. Mitchell, I assume you have additional evidence." "Yes, Your Honor, video evidence." "And a witness." She nodded. "We'll hear it then. Court is adjourned." The gavel fell. I walked out of the courtroom into the bright May sunlight. Robert put a hand on my shoulder. "That went well," he said quietly. I looked back at the courthouse doors. Vanessa and Harmon stood on the steps talking in low voices. She looked shaken. Good. Tomorrow she'd see the videos. She'd hear Martha's testimony. And she'd realize there was no way out. The courtroom was already full when I arrived the next morning. Word had spread. I recognized faces from town neighbors, shop owners, people who'd known Ethan. Judge Foster entered at 9 o'clock sharp. We rose. She sat. The gavel fell. "Mr. Mitchell, you have additional evidence?" Robert stood. "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to present video evidence recovered from the security system at Cottonwood Ranch." He wheeled a cart to the center of the room. On it sat a laptop connected to a wide monitor. "Your Honor, Ethan Hutchison installed a 6-camera security system in April of 2024. The system stored footage on a cloud server with 16 months of rolling capacity. Gerald Hutchison, as executor, accessed the system on April 5th of this year and discovered 89 high-priority motion detection clips." Judge Foster nodded. "Proceed." Robert dimmed the lights and pressed play. Clip 1, January 15th, 2025, 11:47 a.m. The screen showed the front driveway. A silver Honda CR-V pulled up. Vanessa stepped out, unlocked the door, and went inside. Robert said, 3 weeks after the funeral, Ms. Cole returned to the ranch. He played the next clip. Clip 2, February 8th, 2025, 10:47 a.m. A matte black Dodge Ram pulled into the driveway. A tall, bearded man got out. Vanessa came to meet him. He leaned down and kissed her on the mouth, slow and deliberate. The courtroom was silent. Robert let the clip run for 10 more seconds, then paused it. "The man in this video is Kyle Brennan, a personal trainer from Billings. He is not a family member. He is not a grief counselor. He is Ms. Cole's romantic partner." Harmon shifted but said nothing. Robert played 3 more clips in quick succession. March 22nd, 2025, Kyle painting the front door burgundy, while Vanessa stood beside him, smiling. June 15th, 2025, Kyle leading a chestnut horse into the barn, Vanessa clapping. September 3rd, 2025, the two of them sitting on the porch at sunset, wine glasses in hand, laughing. When the final clip ended, Robert turned on the lights. Judge Foster looked at Vanessa. "Ms. Cole, who is this man?" Vanessa's voice was barely audible. A friend who lived in your deceased husband's house, who painted his door, who purchased a horse with estate funds." Vanessa said nothing. Judge Foster made a note. "Continue, Mr. Mitchell." Robert opened a folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a forensic report prepared by Dr. Lisa Monroe, a certified digital forensics expert and former FBI cybercrimes analyst." He handed copies to the judge and to Harmon. Dr. Monroe recovered deleted text messages from cloud backups linked to Ethan Hutchison's phone. These messages were exchanged between Vanessa Cole and Kyle Brennan over a period of 16 months. He read aloud. August 2023. "Vanessa, he'll never let me go. Kyle, then let's make everything revolve around us. April 2024, Xbus, I raised the insurance, $750,000. Kyle, you're smart. December 8th, 2024, 2 weeks before Ethan's death. Vanessa? I'm proceeding. Kyle. When Vanessa soon. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Harmon shot to his feet. Objection. These messages are taken out of context. There's no proof they're authentic. Robert didn't flinch. Your Honor, Dr. Monroe's report includes metadata timestamps and cloud authentication logs. These messages are verified. Judge Foster glanced at the report. Objection overruled. The messages are admitted. Robert pulled up a photograph on the monitor. It showed Vanessa and Kyle at an outdoor concert, arms around each other, smiling. The caption read, "Summer Nights." This photo was posted to Vanessa Cole's Instagram account on July the 15th, 2023. 17 months before Ethan died. 14 months before the insurance policy was increased. Judge Foster leaned forward. Ms. Cole, is that you in this photograph? Vanessa hesitated. Yes. And when was it taken? I don't remember. Robert's voice was calm. The metadata confirms the date July 15th, 2023. The location, Bozeman, Montana. He closed the laptop. Your Honor, these recordings span 16 months from 3 weeks after the funeral until April of this year. They show a pattern of cohabitation, financial fraud, and deliberate concealment. And 3 days after Ethan died, they were already together. He paused. I have one final witness. Martha Kerrigan walked to the stand. She wore a navy cardigan and a simple silver cross. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Robert approached. Mrs. Kerrigan, can you tell the court what you saw on the morning of the December 25th, 2024? Martha's voice was steady. I was sitting by my window around 10:30. I saw a black Dodge Ram parked at Cottonwood Ranch. A man got out, tall, bearded, tattoos on his left arm. Vanessa came out to meet him. He put his hand on her back and kissed her forehead. How long did he stay? About 2 hours. I saw the truck leave just after noon. Robert nodded. Did you notice anything else? Martha's gaze moved to Vanessa. She was wearing a ring, silver, with a turquoise stone, on her right hand. Not her wedding ring. No. Robert turned to the judge. Your Honor, this was 3 days after Ethan's death, 3 days before his funeral, Martha added quietly. She didn't look sad. She looked relieved. Harmon stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Kerrigan, you're 73 years old. How good is your eyesight? Martha's expression didn't change. 20/20 young man, and I know what I saw. Harmon sat down. Judge Foster removed her glasses and looked at both tables. I've heard enough. This court will recess. I'll issue a ruling within 7 days. The gavel fell. Outside, Robert shook my hand. We did it. I looked back at the courthouse. Vanessa stood on the steps alone. Harmon was already walking away, phone to his ear. She'd lost, and she knew it. But as I stood there in the May sunlight, I realized something: winning the case wouldn't bring Ethan back. It wouldn't undo 16 months of lies. Justice wasn't enough, but it was all I had. The call came at 8:47 a.m. on May 14th. Robert's voice was calm but urgent. Gerald, Judge Foster issued her ruling. We need to be in court at 10. I hung up, pulled on my jacket, and drove to Silver Point. Courtroom 3 was quieter this time. No crowd. Just the people who mattered. I sat beside Robert at the petitioner's table. Across the aisle, Vanessa sat next to Douglas Harmon. She wore a gray suit. Her hands were folded on the table, but I could see her fingers trembling. Kyle wasn't there. He wasn't a party to the case, just a ghost in the evidence. At 10 o'clock, sharp the bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Carolyn Foster, presiding. We stood. Judge Foster entered, her face unreadable. She carried a thick folder and a single sheet of paper. She sat. We sat. She adjusted her glasses and looked at both tables. I've reviewed all evidence submitted in Case 2-025-PR-1847 in the matter of the estate of Ethan Hutchison. I'm prepared to issue my ruling. She opened the folder. First, the matter of the life insurance policy. Her voice was steady, deliberate. The beneficiary transfer form submitted to the insurance company on April 15, 2024, bears a forged signature. The handwriting analysis is conclusive. Gerald Hutchison did not consent to the change. She looked at Vanessa. Therefore, the policy amendment is void. The original beneficiary, Gerald Hutchison, is restored. Ms. Cole, you received $750,000 from this policy in January of 2025. That money must be returned in full to the estate within 60 days. Vanessa's face went pale. Judge Foster continued. Second, the estate credit account. She flipped a page. This account was opened on April 22, 2025, without court approval and without the knowledge of the lawful executor. It is therefore unlawful and void. All transactions made from this account, totaling $47,324.18, are hereby reversed. She paused. The horse trailer and the quarter horse purchased with these funds will be seized and sold at public auction. All proceeds will be returned to the estate. Harmon scribbled notes but said nothing. Third, the utility transfers. Judge Foster's tone hardened. On March 10, 2025, Ms. Cole transferred electric, water, and gas accounts from Ethan Hutchison's name to her own without probate approval. These transfers are void. All utilities will be returned to estate control, managed by a court-appointed administrator. She turned the page again. Fourth, the property transfer petition. This was the big one. Ms. Cole filed a petition on March 29, 2025, claiming a widow's homestead exemption and seeking transfer of Cottonwood Ranch into her name. Judge Foster removed her glasses. Montana law is clear. Property purchased with premarital inheritance funds is classified as separate property. It does not become marital property upon marriage. The homestead exemption does not apply. She looked directly at Vanessa. Cottonwood Ranch was purchased by Ethan Hutchison on May 14, 2020, using funds inherited from his late mother, Margaret Hutchison. Ethan married Ms. Cole on June 18, 2021, more than a year later. The ranch is separate property. It is governed by Ethan's will, executed and notarized in November of 2022, which names Gerald Hutchison as sole beneficiary. She put her glasses back on. The petition is denied. Cottonwood Ranch belongs to the estate. It will be distributed according to the terms of the will to Gerald Hutchison. I felt Robert's hand briefly touch my shoulder. Judge Foster wasn't finished. Fifth, the video and digital evidence. She leaned forward. The court finds the security footage and forensic report submitted by Mr. Mitchell to be credible, authentic, and highly persuasive. The evidence shows that Ms. Cole and Kyle Brennan cohabited at Cottonwood Ranch for a period of 16 months following Ethan Hutchison's death. It also shows a romantic relationship that predates Ethan's death by at least 17 months. Her voice dropped. The deleted text messages recovered by Dr. Lisa Monroe are particularly concerning. The phrase, "I am proceeding sexualbrushing," sent 2 weeks before Ethan's death, raises serious questions about the circumstances surrounding that death. She closed the folder. This court is referring this matter to the Silver Point County Prosecutor's Office for Criminal Investigation, specifically potential charges of conspiracy fraud, and pending further evidence homicide. The word hung in the air like a stone. Vanessa's head dropped. Sixth, the testimony of Martha Kerrigan. Judge Foster's tone softened slightly. Mrs. Kerrigan's testimony was clear, consistent, and corroborated by video evidence. The court finds her account credible. She observed Ms. Cole and Mr. Brennan together at Cottonwood Ranch on December 25th, 2024, 3 days after Ethan's death and 3 days before his funeral. This supports the conclusion that their relationship was ongoing and deliberate. She picked up the single sheet of paper. The court hereby issues the following orders. She read them aloud one by one. 1. Vanessa Cole must vacate Cottonwood Ranch within 38 days of today's date. Failure to comply will result in forcible eviction by the Silver Point County Sheriff's Department. 2. Ms. Cole must provide a full financial accounting of all estate funds, insurance proceeds, and personal expenditures within 21 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt of court charges. 3. All estate accounts are hereby frozen. No further withdrawals or transfers are permitted without court approval. 4. A court-appointed administrator will be assigned to oversee the estate until final distribution. 5. This matter is referred to the Silver Point County Prosecutor for Criminal Investigation. She set the paper down and looked at both tables. Are there any questions? Harmon stood. Your Honor, we request a stay of eviction pending. Judge Foster cut him off. Denied. She raised her gavel. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. We walked out into the bright May morning. The The courthouse steps were empty. Robert shook my hand. "You won, Gerald, everything." I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. The ranch was mine again. The insurance money would be returned. Vanessa would be investigated, but Ethan was still gone. I looked west toward the crazy mountains. Somewhere beyond them lay Cottonwood Ranch, the place my son had loved, the place he had died trying to protect. "It's not over," I said quietly. Robert frowned. "What do you mean?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet, but I felt it, a tightness in my chest, a certainty I couldn't name. Vanessa had lost, but people like her didn't surrender easily. And I was right. 3 days later, she filed an appeal and a motion for a temporary restraining order to block the eviction. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The certified letter arrived on May 17th at 9:22 a.m. I signed for it at my front door and tore it open before the mail carrier had reached the sidewalk. Notice of appeal. Case 2025-PR-1847. Vanessa Cole, appellant. Beneath it was a second filing. Emergency motion for temporary restraining order. I read it twice. Vanessa was asking the court to bar me from coming within 500 feet of Cottonwood Ranch until the appeal was resolved. Her attorney claimed I had engaged in unlawful surveillance and created a threatening environment. I called Robert. "I got it too," he said. "It's a stall tactic, Gerald. She's trying to buy time." "Can she do this?" "She can file it. Doesn't mean a judge will grant it." He paused. "We have a hearing on the TRO in 3 days. I'll handle it." For the next 10 days, I stayed away from the ranch. I wanted to drive out there to see what was happening, but Robert warned me not to. If you violate the TRO request before the hearing, Harmon will twist it into harassment, stay in Billings. So I waited. I sat at my kitchen table every morning with coffee I didn't drink. I stared at the mountains in the distance and thought about Ethan, about the ranch, about Vanessa and Kyle living in a house that wasn't theirs, spending money they'd stolen, laughing over wine while my son's grave was still fresh. The anger didn't fade. It hardened. On May 20th, we returned to courtroom 3. Judge Foster didn't look pleased. She glanced at the TRO motion, then at Douglas Harmon. "Mr. Harmon, you're alleging that Mr. Hutchison unlawfully surveilled your client. Explain." Harmon stood. "Your Honor, Mr. Hutchison accessed a security camera system without Ms. Cole's knowledge or consent. He recorded her private activities for months and used that footage against her in court. This is a clear violation of her Fourth Amendment rights." Judge Foster's eyebrows rose. "The cameras were installed by Ethan Hutchison 8 months before his death. They were his property. Gerald Hutchison, as executor and beneficiary, had lawful access to those systems." "But, Your Honor." "Mr. Mitchell, your response?" Robert stood. "Your Honor, this motion is baseless. The cameras were installed by Ethan on his own property. Gerald had the password because Ethan gave it to him. Ms. Cole was aware of the cameras. She lived in the house for 16 months. She could have disabled them at any time. She chose not to." He paused. "This TRO is nothing more than a delay tactic. Ms. Cole has 38 days to vacate the property. She's trying to stop the clock. The court should deny this motion immediately." Judge Foster didn't hesitate. "Motion denied. The original ruling stands. Ms. Cole, you were given 38 days as of May 14th. The clock is still running. You now have 28 days remaining." She turned to Harmon. "Any attempt to delay this process further will be viewed as obstruction. Am I clear?" "Yes, Your Honor." The gavel fell. 2 weeks later, on June 2nd, I sat in a different courtroom, this one in the State Appellate Building in Helena, Montana. The room was larger, more formal. 3 judges sat at the bench, dressed in black robes. No jury, no gallery. Just Robert Harmon, Vanessa, and me. The lead judge was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She didn't waste time. "Mr. Harmon, you're appealing Judge Foster's ruling in the probate case. State your grounds." Harmon stood and launched into his argument. He claimed the ranch was marital property because Vanessa had lived there for 3 years. He argued the video evidence was inadmissible because it violated her privacy. He said Martha Kerrigan's testimony was unreliable because she was elderly and biased. The judges listened in silence. When Harmon finished the lead, Judge turned to Robert. "Mr. Mitchell." Robert stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Your Honors, the facts are simple. Ethan Hutchison purchased Cottonwood Ranch on May 14, 2020 with inheritance funds. He married Ms. Cole on June 18, 2021, over a year later. Under Montana, Code Annotated, Section 40-2-201. Property acquired before marriage with separate funds remains separate property. The ranch was never marital property. He placed a copy of the deed and the marriage license on the table in front of him. As for the video evidence, Ethan installed the cameras himself. Gerald Hutchison had lawful access as executor. Ms. Cole was aware of the cameras. There is no privacy violation. One of the judges leaned forward. Mr. Harmon, did your client ever attempt to disable the cameras? Harmon hesitated. No, Your Honor. But then she consented to their presence. The judge looked at Robert. Continue. Robert addressed Martha's testimony. Mrs. Kerrigan is 73 years old, with 20/20 vision. She provided specific corroborated details, dates, times, vehicle descriptions, clothing. Her testimony was credible. Judge Foster found it so. This court should as well. The lead judge made a note. We'll issue a ruling within 48 hours. The call came on June 4th at 3:17 p.m. Gerald, Robert said. We won. I closed my eyes. Tell me. The appellate court denied the appeal, unanimously. They found the evidence overwhelming, and the TRO motion frivolous. They noted that Ms. Cole's legal strategy constitutes an abuse of process. What does that mean? It means the original ruling stands. Vanessa has to vacate, and she's running out of time. I did the math. 38 days from May 14th, minus 21 days, 17 days left. She's out of moves, Robert said. It's over. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 11:30 p.m., I got in my truck and drove west on Highway 90. I turned off onto Old Pine Road and climbed into the foothills. I parked on a ridge about a quarter mile above Cottonwood Ranch. From there, I could see the whole property. The lights were on in the house. Smoke rose from the chimney and parked in the driveway. Gleaming under the porch light was the matte black Dodge Ram. Kyle was still there. I sat in the truck with the engine off, binoculars in my lap, and watched. At 11:52 p.m., the porch light went out. The house went dark, but the truck stayed. I sat there for another hour staring at the silhouette of the barn, the cottonwood trees, the creek bridge my son had built with his own hands. And I knew deep in my gut that this wasn't over. Vanessa had lost in court. But people like her didn't just walk away. Something was coming. I didn't know what, but I'd be ready. Before I show you the confrontation that changed everything, let me know you're here. Comment "I'm listening" so I know you're following along. Please note, what comes next involves creative storytelling to convey the emotional weight of these moments. Not every detail reflects literal events. If you'd rather stop now, that's okay. But the message about courage and justice is worth hearing. The alert came at 9:47 p.m. My phone buzzed on the kitchen table. I picked it up and saw the notification, motion detected, front gate, camera 1, live feed available. I tapped the screen. The video opened on the driveway. A matte black Dodge Ram pulled up to the house and stopped. The driver's door opened. Kyle Brennan stepped out, a beer bottle in his hand. He walked toward the porch like he owned the place. I grabbed my keys. The drive from Billings to Cottonwood Ranch is 67 miles. I made it in 65 minutes. Before I left, I did something I hadn't planned on. I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and hit record. Then I slid the phone into my shirt pocket microphone, facing out. I'd learned my lesson. If Kyle said anything at all, I wanted it on tape. I parked 50 yards from the house, engine off, headlights dark. The Dodge Ram sat in the driveway, passenger door still open. Light spilled from the porch. I got out and walked toward the house. I was halfway across the yard when Kyle stepped onto the porch. He folded his arms across his chest. "You're trespassing, old man." I stopped 10 feet from the steps. "This is my son's property. The court gave it back to me. You've got 17 days. Kyle smiled. It wasn't friendly. "Vanessa's not going anywhere, and neither am I. The sheriff will remove you if you don't leave voluntarily." He came down the steps slowly, his boots heavy on the wood. He was taller than me by 4 inches and outweighed me by 50 pounds. But I didn't move. Kyle stopped 2 feet away, close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath. "You know what your problem is," he said quietly. "You don't know when to quit. I'm not the one squatting on stolen property. His jaw tightened. Stolen Vanessa earned that insurance money. She put up with Ethan for 3 years. That's worth something. She forged my signature. She lied to the court, and now she's done. Kyle stepped closer. His voice dropped. Accidents happen, old man. Your son learned that the hard way. My heart slammed against my ribs. What did you just say? He tilted his head eyes cold. Long roads, dark nights, deer, elk, semi-trucks. You're 67. You should be careful. I took a step back, keeping my hand near my pocket. The phone was still recording. I'm leaving, I said. But you and Vanessa? It's over. The law's coming. Kyle laughed. It was loud, harsh. He followed me as I turned toward my truck. The law? He said mockingly. You think the law scares me? I've been dealing with lawyers for months. They don't have anything. I kept walking. He kept talking. You want to know the truth, Gerald? His voice rose. Ethan never should have made it past that curve on Highway 90. Vanessa knew it. I knew it. The insurance money, that was the whole point. I stopped, turned around. What did you just say? Kyle's face changed. He realized what he'd said. His smile vanished. Nothing. Forget it. I took a step toward him. You said the whole point. What point? Get off this property. You said Vanessa knew what Kyle's hands curled into fists. You don't have proof of anything. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and held it up. The red recording light blinked in the darkness. I have every word. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Kyle lunged. I jerked the phone back and ran. I'm not a young man, but fear has a way of making you fast. I reached the Silverado, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. I slammed the lock down just as Kyle's fist hit the window. Give me that phone, he shouted. I started the engine, threw it into reverse, and floored it. Kyle stood in the driveway, breathing hard, fists clenched. He didn't chase me. He just stood there, watching me go. I drove back to Billings with my hands shaking and my heart hammering in my chest. At 11:47 p.m., halfway home, I pulled over onto the shoulder of Highway 90. I needed to hear it, to make sure it was real. I opened the voice recorder app and hit play. The audio was clear. Kyle's voice. Ethan never should have made it past that curve on Highway 90. Vanessa knew it. I knew it. The insurance money, that was the whole point. I played it 3 more times. 8 minutes, 34 seconds. Every word. He'd confessed. At 12:18 a.m., I called Robert. He answered on the first ring. Gerald, what happened? I went to the ranch. Kyle was there. He threatened me, and he confessed. There was a long pause. Confessed to what? To murdering Ethan. Robert's voice sharpened. Did you record it? Yes. Is it clear? Crystal. Another pause. Then Robert said, Gerald, this is a murder confession. You need to take it to the police. Tonight. I know. Don't email it. Don't send it. Walk it in yourself. Make sure they understand what they're hearing. I will. He exhaled. This changes everything. Kyle just destroyed himself, and Vanessa with him. At 12:34 a.m. on June 3rd, 2025, I walked through the doors of the Billings Police Department. The desk sergeant looked up. Can I help you? I set my phone on the counter. My name is Gerald Hutchison. My son, Ethan Hutchison, died in a car accident on December 22nd, 2024. I have a recording of a man confessing to his murder. The sergeant's eyes widened. Sir, wait here. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in an interview room with 2 detectives. I played the recording. They listened in silence. When it ended, the older detective looked at me. Mr. Hutchison, we're going to need the original file, a written statement, and everything you know about Kyle Brennan and Vanessa Cole. I'll give you everything. He nodded. We'll take it from here. I left the station at 2:17 a.m. The streets were empty. The sky was black. But for the first time in 16 months, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day Ethan died. Hope. Kyle had confessed. The police had the recording, and Vanessa's world was about to collapse. I sat in interview room 2 at the Billings Police Department at 12:34 a.m. The walls were beige. The table was metal. A camera blinked red in the corner. Across from me sat Detective Sarah Hayes, early 40s dark hair, pulled back sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. She'd been with Billings PD homicide for 15 years. I told her everything. Ethan's death, the probate case, the videos, the deleted texts, Martha Kerrigan's testimony, and finally the confrontation with Kyle Brennan 2 hours ago. Then I played the recording. She listened without interrupting. When Kyle's voice said, "Ethan never should have made it past that curve on Highway 90. Vanessa knew it. I knew it. The insurance money that was the whole point." She leaned forward. She played it again. Then a third time. Finally, she looked at me. "Mr. Hutchison, this recording is admissible. It's time-stamped, GPS tagged. And you're a single-party participant. Montana law allows it. What happens now? I'm forwarding this to the county prosecutor and the Montana Highway Patrol. They'll reopen the accident investigation." She paused. "Stay away from the ranch. Let us handle Kyle and Vanessa." I nodded. "I will." 3 days later, on June 9th, my phone rang at 10:17 a.m. "Mr. Hutchison, this is Marcus Webb. I'm the Assistant District Attorney for Silver Point County." His voice was calm, direct, a prosecutor's voice. "Kyle Brennan was arrested last night at Cottonwood Ranch. We've charged him with accessory to murders, conspiracy to commit deliberate homicide, and terroristic threats. I'd like you to come in for a briefing this afternoon. I'll be there." At 2 p.m., I sat in a conference room at the Silver Point County Prosecutor's Office. Robert Mitchell sat beside me. Marcus Webb stood at the head of the table, late 40s, gray suit, thinning hair. 20 years of courtroom experience in his eyes. Detective Hayes sat to his left. To his right was a man I didn't recognize. "This is Dr. Raymond Kessler," Webb said, "forensic audio analyst." Kessler nodded. He was in his 50s, glasses calm demeanor. "Mr. Hutchison, I've analyzed your recording. The voice print matches Kyle Brennan's voice from prior legal records, a 2019 DUI and a 2022 traffic stop. The audio is unedited. Metadata is intact. It's admissible in court." Webb nodded. "Thank you, doctor." He turned to me. "Gerald, I want you to see something." He pressed a button on the laptop. A video appeared on the wall monitor. Interview Room 1, June 6th, 2025, 8:15 p.m. Kyle sat at a metal table, hands cuffed in front of him. His face was tight, defensive. Detective Hayes sat across from him. "Kyle, we need to talk about Vanessa Cole." "I don't know what you're talking about." "When did your relationship with her begin?" Kyle hesitated. "After Ethan died." Hayes slid a photograph across the table. The concert photo from July 2023. Kyle and Vanessa arms around each other. "This was taken 17 months before Ethan died." Kyle said nothing. Hayes played the audio recording. Kyle's own voice filled the room. "Ethan never should have made it past that curve. Vanessa knew it. I knew it." Kyle stared at the table. 47 seconds of silence. Finally, Hayes said, "Kyle, you're on tape confessing to a homicide conspiracy. You cooperate now, or you face first-degree murder charges alongside Vanessa. Your choice." Kyle looked up. "I want a lawyer." The video paused. Ed Webb turned to me. He lawyered up. We stopped the interview. 2 hours later, he came back with a public defender, Emily Stroud, and he made a deal. "What kind of deal?" "Testimony against Vanessa in exchange for reduced charges. He'll plead guilty to accessory after the fact and conspiracy. He'll serve 18 years, but he'll testify." Webb pressed play again. Kyle sat beside Emily Stroud, a young attorney in a navy blazer. His voice was quieter now. Hayes asked, "When did the affair begin?" "July 2023. We met at a concert in Bozeman." "When did Vanessa first mention the life insurance?" "March 2024. She said Ethan had a policy, $250,000. Gerald was the beneficiary. She said it wasn't enough." "What did she do?" "She forged Gerald's signature, raised it to $750,000, changed the beneficiary to herself." "Did you help her?" "No, but I didn't stop her." Hayes leaned forward. "When did she first talk about killing Ethan?" Kyle swallowed. "November 2024. She said she wanted him out of the picture. I asked what she meant. She said, 'Accidents happen.'" "Did you report this?" "No." "Why not?" I don't know." Hayes waited. Kyle continued. "She had a prescription, Ambien, Zolpidem 10 milligrams. On December 22nd, the morning of the crash, she texted me. The message is deleted now, but I remember it. She said, 2 in his coffee." Hayes' voice was flat. 2 pills. "Yeah, 20 milligrams." "And you knew what that meant." Kyle nodded. "Ethan left for a job site at 2:50 p.m. He crashed at 3:40. He was dead by 4. The room was silent. Hayes asked, "When did you move to the ranch?" 6 weeks after the funeral, February 8th. And you lived there for 16 months? Yes. Did Vanessa ever admit what she did? Kyle hesitated. Then he nodded. Once. She said he never felt a thing. The video stopped. Webb turned off the monitor. Kyle's confession combined with your recording is enough to charge Vanessa with first-degree murder. We've issued a warrant for her arrest. Where is she? Webb's face darkened. Gone. Her phone's been off for 72 hours. No credit card activity. No sightings. We've issued an APB across Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and North Dakota. Detective Hayes added, She knows Kyle's in custody. She's running. I sat back. My chest felt tight. Will you find her? Webb nodded. We will. It's only a matter of time. I left the courthouse at 4:30 p.m. The sun was still high over the mountains. Robert walked me to my truck. You did it, Gerald. You got justice for Ethan. I nodded, but I didn't feel relief. Vanessa was gone. Kyle was in jail, but Ethan was still dead. And somewhere out there, the woman who killed him was driving toward a border, a new name, a new life. 2 days later, on June 11th at 9:37 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, Montana area code, I answered. Hello. A woman's voice, shaky, familiar. Gerald, it's Vanessa. My hand tightened around the phone. I need to talk to you, she said. Please, just listen. I didn't hang up. I pressed record. The phone rang at 9:37 p.m. on June 11th, 2025. I was sitting in my kitchen in Billings, the lights off, staring at the mountains through the window. I'd been sitting there for 2 hours, unable to sleep, replaying Kyle's confession in my mind. Ethan never should have made it past that curve on Highway 90. Vanessa knew it. I knew it. The insurance money, that was the whole point. 3 days had passed since I'd walked into the Billings Police Department and handed Detective Hayes that recording. 3 days since Kyle had been arrested. 3 days of waiting. The phone screen lit up unknown number. Montana area, code 406. I stared at it for 3 rings. Then I answered. Hello. A woman's voice, shaky, familiar. Gerald, it's Vanessa. My chest tightened. Every instinct told me to hang up and call Hayes immediately, but I didn't. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I stood up, slowly walked to the window. My reflection stared back at me in the dark glass, an old man alone, holding a phone like a weapon. The police are looking for you, I said. There's a warrant out. She laughed bitterly. Kyle talked, didn't he? Accessory, conspiracy. He's pathetic. He couldn't handle the pressure. He never could. I grabbed my phone, opened the voice recorder, and hit record. Then I switched the call to speaker. You killed my son, I said. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing, fast, shallow. Then her voice came back colder than before. Ethan was in the way, Gerald. The ranch, this life, it was all about him and you. I gave him 3 years. I smiled, I cooked, I pretended to be the perfect wife. What did I get? A dead-end marriage in the middle of nowhere, and a controlling father-in-law who treated me like I didn't exist. My hand gripped the edge of the windowsill. I forced my voice to stay level. So you poisoned him, put Ambien in his coffee, sent him onto the highway. She didn't deny it. It wasn't supposed to go like this, she said quietly. The plan was simple. Ethan falls asleep at the wheel, a tragic accident. No one asks questions. I collect the insurance and move on. Clean, easy. No one gets hurt except Ethan, and honestly, he was already halfway gone. He loved you more than he loved me. My throat burned. He loved you. He gave you everything he had. Her voice turned sharp. Everything? A cabin in the woods. A husband who worked 80-hour weeks and came home smelling like diesel and sawdust. I wanted more than that, Gerald. I deserved more. Kyle understood. I took a breath, kept my tone calm. Kyle's in jail. He confessed. He told them about the Ambien, about the text you sent, about the plan. Vanessa was silent for a moment. Then she laughed, a short, bitter sound. Kyle's a liar. He's saying whatever they want him to say to save his own skin. You know that, right? He'll say anything to get a deal. I have a recording of him confessing. It's admissible. Recordings can be edited, taken out of context. My lawyer will shred it. Then her tone shifted, softer, calculating. Gerald, listen to me. I didn't call to fight. I called because I want to make this right. I said nothing. She continued. A trial will drag Ethan's name through the mud. The media will run headlines: engineer drugged by wife. Man duped into marrying killer. Is that what you want? His memory destroyed? I felt my jaw tighten. What are you offering? I plead guilty to fraud. I give back the ranch. I disappear. You never hear from me again. All you have to do is tell the prosecutor to drop the murder charge. Tell them Kyle lied. Tell them there's no evidence. I leaned closer to the phone recording on the windowsill. My voice was ice. There is evidence. The Ambien prescription, the deleted texts, Kyle's confession, the forged $750,000 insurance form, the concert photo from July of 2023. Martha Kerrigan saw you and Kyle together 3 days before the funeral. You think I'm going to let all of that go? Vanessa's voice hardened. You're old Gerald. You lost your wife. You lost your son. Do you really want to spend the rest of your life sitting in a courtroom, fighting lawyers, watching reporters tear apart your family? Let it go. Take the ranch back. That's the smart move. I leaned in close to the phone on the windowsill. No. Her voice turned venomous. Wrong answer. Kyle's testimony won't hold up in court. He's a criminal with a DUI on his record. He made a deal to save himself. The pharmacy record's legal prescription. The text's fragments. Deleted. My lawyer will argue they're unreliable. You'll lose Gerald. And when you do, I'll sue you for harassment, defamation, emotional distress. I'll take everything you have left. I smiled. She couldn't see it, but I felt it. Try it, I said. But right now, you're a fugitive. There's an all-points bulletin out for you, and every word of the last 9 minutes has been recorded. Silence. Then her breath came fast and shallow. You're lying. I learned from Kyle, I said quietly. I've been recording since the moment you said Ethan was in the way. You just confessed to premeditated murder. Again. Her voice cracked. You son of a... The line went dead. I stared at the phone. The recording had run for 8 minutes and 52 seconds. I saved it immediately, uploaded it to the cloud, then I emailed it to 3 people. Robert Mitchell, a state attorney, Marcus Webb, assistant district attorney, Detective Sarah Hayes, Billings, PD homicide subject line, Vanessa Cole, second confession, June 11th, 2025, 9:37 p.m. I attached the audio file and hit send. 4 minutes later, my phone rang. Detective Hayes. Gerald, where did she call from? I don't know. Unknown number, probably a burner. Stay on the line. Don't hang up. I heard keyboard clicks in the background, voices shouting, radio chatter. Then Hayes came back. Prepaid phone. We traced the tower ping. She's near Kalispell, Montana, 30 miles from the Canadian border. I'm contacting Kalispell PD and U.S. Border Patrol right now. Will you catch her? We will. She just made a critical mistake, Gerald. That recording, she admitted to the Ambien, the plan, the motive, everything. This is over. I sat down. My hands were shaking. Find her, I said. We will. I'll call you when we do. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, staring out at the dark Montana sky. I thought about Ethan, about the ranch, about Vanessa's voice on the phone, cold, venomous, desperate, and utterly without remorse. She'd admitted it. Twice now. Once to Kyle, once to me. And both times, she'd been recorded. At 1:14 p.m. the next day, 16 hours after the call, my phone rang. Detective Hayes. We found her. I stood up. Where? Northern Lights Motel, just outside Kalispell. She was registered under the name Victoria Marsh. We recovered $8,400 in cash, a forged Canadian passport, and the prepaid phone she used to call you. She's in custody. We're transporting her to Silver Point County Jail right now. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank you. Hayes paused. Gerald, you did this. You got justice for your son. That recording, it's the final nail in the coffin. I hung up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was shining. The mountains were bright against the blue sky. Vanessa was in handcuffs. Kyle was in a cell. The ranch was mine again. And for the first time in 16 months, I felt something close to peace. But it wasn't over yet. There was still a trial to come, and I'd be there for every minute of it. I couldn't sleep. After Vanessa's call ended, I sat in the kitchen with the lights off and my phone on the table. The clock above the stove ticked past midnight. Then 1 a.m., then 2. I played the recording again, her voice cold and sharp. Ethan was in the way. The plan was simple. I wanted more than that. I thought about my son, the insulated coffee mug he carried every morning, the Ambien dissolving in the dark liquid, Highway 90 stretching west under a gray December sky, mile marker 112, the curve, the median, the roll, the tree, the silence. My hands shook. I made coffee but didn't drink it. At 3:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Detective Hayes. We found her car. Kalispell PD spotted a silver 2021 Honda CR-V, matching her plates at the Northern Lights Motel, Highway 93, 12 miles from the Canadian border. Officers are en route. I'm driving up now. I'll call you when we have her. I gripped the phone. Thank you. Stay by your phone, Gerald. She hung up. I sat back down and waited. Hayes called again at 6:17 a.m. We got her. I closed my eyes. Tell me. She spoke quickly, her voice steady. I arrived at the motel at 4:52 this morning. 2 Kalispell PD units were already on scene. Sergeant Tim Bowen, 28 years on, the force confirmed the Honda CR-V was parked in front of room 7. Plates matched. Engine was cold. Was she there? Yes, the desk clerk guy named Ray Early 60s said a woman matching Vanessa's description checked in at 11:15 last night. Paid cash for one night. Used the name Victoria Marsh. Asked for a room in the back. I wrote the name down. Victoria Marsh. Hayes continued. Bowen and I approached room 7. Lights were off. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again and identified myself. Kalispell Police. Open the door. Still nothing? She paused. Then I said, Ms. Cole, we have a warrant for your arrest. Open the door now or we break it down. What did she do? 15 seconds later, the door opened. Hayes described the scene. Vanessa stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail. Her face was pale, no makeup, no jewelry. She looked at Hayes, then at the 4 officers behind her, then at the 2 patrol cars parked in the lot, lights flashing red and blue against the motel's peeling white paint. She didn't say a word. Hayes stepped forward. Vanessa Marie Cole, you're under arrest for the murder of Ethan Hutchison, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and flight to avoid prosecution. She read Vanessa her Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights? Vanessa nodded. Say it out loud, please. I understand. Hayes cuffed her hands behind her back and placed her in the back of Sergeant Bowen's cruiser. Then they searched. In the trunk of the CR-V, they found a black suitcase filled with clothes, jean sweaters, underwear, a winter coat, $8,400 in cash, bundled with rubber bands and stuffed into a zippered pouch, a Canadian passport in the name of Victoria Ann Marsh. The photo was Vanessa's. The document was a forgery poor quality, likely purchased online. The prepaid phone she'd used to call me. In room 7, they found a laptop password protected, a handwritten list of Canadian border crossings, Rooseville Sweetgrass, Wild Horse, a printed map showing Highway 93 north to the Rooseville port of entry 38 miles from the motel, a gas station receipt from Kalispell, time-stamped 10:43 p.m. the night before. It confirmed her timeline. Hayes photographed everything, bagged it, and called ADA Webb. He authorized transport to Billings for arraignment. At 5:48 a.m., the convoy left the Northern Lights Motel. 2 Kalispell patrol cars, Hayes' sedan, and Sergeant Bowen's cruiser, with Vanessa in the back seat. She didn't speak. She just stared out the window as the dark Montana mountains rolled past. While Vanessa was being arrested in Kalispell, a second team executed a warrant at Silver Point County Jail. Kyle Brennan, already in custody on accessory charges, was formally rearrested. The new charges: conspiracy to commit deliberate homicide and insurance fraud. He was informed that Vanessa had been apprehended. His plea deal testimony in exchange for reduced sentencing was now in effect. Public Defender Emily Stroud advised him to cooperate fully. Kyle agreed. He was moved to a holding cell to await a joint arraignment. Hayes' voice brought me back. Gerald, are you there? I'm here. We're transporting her to Billings. Arraignment is tomorrow morning at 9. Judge Foster will preside. Webb is requesting no bail. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I looked around my kitchen. the table where I'd opened a $412 electric bill 14 weeks ago, the laptop where I'd watched 89 video clips, the phone I'd used to record Vanessa's confession. "Thank you, Detective. One more thing," Hayes said. "We found $8,400 in cash, a fake passport, and border crossing maps. She was planning to run. She was always planning to run. The prosecutor will argue flight risk and danger to the community. She won't get bail." "Good." Hayes paused. "Gerald, you should be there tomorrow for the arraignment. You've earned it." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I will be." I hung up and sat in the silence. The sky outside my window was beginning to lighten, pale blue edging into the darkness, the mountains sharp against the horizon. Vanessa was in handcuffs. Kyle was in a cell. The ranch was legally mine, and tomorrow I would sit in a courtroom and watch them stand before a judge. I thought about Ethan, about the last time I'd seen him 4 years ago, standing on the porch of Cottonwood Ranch, smiling, waving as I drove away. I thought about Margaret, my wife, who'd left him the money to buy that ranch. She would have wanted this. Justice, accountability, the truth. I poured the cold coffee down the sink, washed the cup, and set it in the dish rack. Then I went upstairs, lay down on the bed fully clothed, and closed my eyes. For the first time in 16 months, I slept. The next morning, I drove to the Silver Point County Courthouse. I parked on Main Street, climbed the granite steps, and walked through the heavy oak doors. Courtroom 3 was already filling. I took a seat in the front row of the gallery directly behind the prosecutor's table. At 9 a.m., the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Carolyn Foster entered. We stood. She sat. The gavel fell. Case number 2025-CR-5521. The bailiff announced. The people of Montana versus Vanessa Marie Cole and Kyle Andrew Brennan. 2 deputies led Vanessa and Kyle into the courtroom. Both wore orange jumpsuits. Both were handcuffed. Vanessa's eyes swept the room. For a moment, they met mine. I didn't look away. Judge Foster opened the file. "Ms. Cole, Mr. Brennan, you are charged with conspiracy to commit deliberate homicide, insurance fraud, and related offenses. How do you plead?" Kyle's attorney stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has agreed to cooperate with the prosecution under a plea agreement." Judge Foster made a note. Then she looked at Vanessa. "Ms. Cole." Vanessa stood slowly. Her voice was barely audible. "Not guilty." Judge Foster's expression didn't change. "Bail hearing will proceed, Mr. Webb." And I sat back and watched real justice begin. The courtroom was silent when the bailiff called us to order at 9:04 a.m. on June 9th, 2025. Case number 2025-CR-5521. The State of Montana versus Vanessa Marie Cole. Judge Carolyn Foster entered. We stood. The gavel fell. I sat in the front row directly behind Ada Marcus Webb. Vanessa was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. Beside her stood Lawrence Brenner, early 50s. Expensive suit, silver hair, one of Billings' top defense attorneys. Vanessa didn't look at me. I didn't take my eyes off her. Judge Foster opened the file. "Ms. Cole, you are charged with deliberate homicide in the first-degree conspiracy, insurance fraud, forgery, and flight to avoid prosecution. How do you plead?" Brenner stood. "Not guilty on all counts, Your Honor. Bail hearing will proceed, Mr. Webb." Webb rose. "Your Honor, the state requests remand without bail. 3 reasons: flight risk, danger, and overwhelming evidence." He placed a folder on the podium. "Ms. Cole was arrested 12 miles from the Canadian border with $8,400, cash, a forged passport, border maps, and a prepaid phone. She has no ties to Montana. She fled. Second, she deliberately poisoned her husband and sent him onto a public highway, endangering others. She showed no remorse. Third, the evidence. 2 recorded confessions, one from co-defendant Kyle Brennan, one from Miss Cole herself. 89 surveillance videos, deleted texts showing premeditation. Pharmacy records confirming she filled a prescription for Ambien 12 days before her husband's death. A forged $750,000 insurance form. Eyewitness testimony. Your Honor, she is a flight risk and a danger. We request no bail." Brenner responded smoothly. "Your Honor, my client is entitled to the presumption of innocence. The recordings are out of context. Mr. Brennan is not credible. He has a DUI and made a deal. The texts are fragments. The pharmacy records show a legal prescription. We request bail of $100,000 with GPS monitoring and house arrest. Judge Foster was silent for 2 minutes. Then she spoke. Ms. Cole, the evidence is substantial and deeply troubling. The recordings, the forensics, the flight to the border, all point to premeditation and significant flight risk. The state's arguments are persuasive. She picked up her gavel. Bail is denied. You will be held at Silver Point County Jail. Trial is set for September 15, 2025. Adjourned. The gavel fell. Vanessa was led away. Robert leaned close. She's not getting out. 2 weeks later, Webb filed for exhumation. Judge Foster approved it on June 15th. On June 25th, I stood at Cottonwood Memorial Cemetery and watched as they exhumed Ethan's casket. Tissue hair and bone samples were sent to the Montana State Crime Lab in Missoula. On July 20th, I met with Webb Detective Hayes and Dr. Patricia Wells, a 62-year-old forensic toxicologist with 34 years of experience. She slid a report across the table. Mr. Hutchison, we found zolpidem ambien at a concentration of 20 milligrams in your son's liver, kidneys, and hair. Is that a lot? Yes, a therapeutic dose is 5 to 10 milligrams. 20 is double the maximum. We cross-referenced Montana's prescription database. Ethan had no prescription. Vanessa filled one on December 10th, 12 days before his death. 30 10-milligram tablets. I closed my eyes. Dr. Wells continued. The drug was ingested 2 to 4 hours before death. Gastric contents showed high caffeine levels, coffee, and crushed tablet residue. It was dissolved in a hot beverage. Could it have been accidental? She shook her head. No prescription, no history of sleep disorders, no reason to take a sedative before a long drive. 20 milligrams causes drowsiness in 15 to 30 minutes, impairs coordination, distorts vision, and can cause sudden sleep. A person under this influence cannot drive safely. The crash wasn't a possibility, it was inevitable. Webb asked, "Can you amend the cause of death?" Yes, from motor vehicle accident to homicide, blunt force trauma. Secondary to crash induced by non-consensual zolpidem poisoning. She closed the folder. Your son was murdered. The trial began September 15th and lasted 12 days. I sat in the gallery every day. Day 1. Webb's opening laid out the timeline affair, forgery, Ambien murder cover-up. Days 3 through 5. Kyle testified for 8 hours. He described the affair. The plan, the text, 2 in his coffee. Vanessa never looked at him. Day 6. Dr. Wells explained the toxicology. 20 milligrams, crushed tablets, coffee, inevitable crash. The jury was silent. Day 7. The recordings were played. Kyle's voice, Vanessa's voice, confessions. Day 9. Vanessa testified against Brenner's advice. She claimed the recordings were out of context, that Kyle lied, that Ethan's death was an accident. Webb cross-examined her. She broke down, shouted, accused the jury and me of conspiracy. Judge Foster called a recess. Day 12. Closing arguments. Webb was calm and devastating. Brenner fought hard. But the evidence was too strong. On September 27th, 2025, at 4:47 p.m., the jury returned after 11 hours. The foreman stood. On the charge of deliberate homicide in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Conspiracy to commit homicide guilty. Insurance fraud guilty. Forgery guilty. Flight to avoid prosecution guilty. Vanessa stared straight ahead. I closed my eyes and breathed. Sentencing came 1 week later. Judge Foster looked at Vanessa. You murdered your husband in cold blood for money. You showed no remorse. You fled. You lied. The law provides only one sentence. She paused. You are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. An additional 25 years will run concurrently for fraud. The gavel fell. Kyle Brennan received 18 years under his plea agreement. 5 months later, in late February 2026, I stood on the front porch of Cottonwood Ranch. The war was over, but the healing had only just begun. The Montana sky in late February was vast and clear. I stood on the front porch of Cottonwood Ranch, a mug of black coffee in my hand, and watched the sun climb over the crazy mountains. The air smelled like pine-wet earth and wildflowers pushing through the last patches of snow. The creek was running high snowmelt from the foothills, rushing over smooth stones and under the wooden bridge Ethan had built with his own hands. A red-tailed hawk circled above the cottonwood trees that shaded the grain shed. Its cry echoed across the pasture. Ethan had been gone for 26 months, and for the first time since I'd opened that $412 electric bill, I felt something close to peace. The ranch was mine now, legally, officially, completely. The probate case had closed in August of 2025. The trial had ended on September 27th. Vanessa life without parole at Montana State Prison. Kyle 18 years. Both would never be free. And Cottonwood Ranch belonged to me. After the trial, I'd come back to the ranch alone. It had been empty for 4 months since Vanessa's arrest in June. I walked through every room, every corner of the 22 acres, taking inventory of what she'd changed, what she'd stolen, what she'd tried to erase. The front door was painted burgundy, Vanessa's color. I repainted it navy blue, Ethan's color. The hand-carved wooden sign that read Cottonwood Ranch had been taken down and replaced with a metal sign that said V&K Ranch. I burned the metal sign in the fire pit and spent 2 evenings sanding, staining, and rehanging the original. The barn was full of Kyle's junk tools, tarps, beer cans, trash. I spent 3 weekends clearing it out. 6 trips to the county dump. The horse trailer and the quarter horse had been sold at auction under court order. $41,200 was returned to the estate. I signed the check over to a scholarship fund in Ethan's name at Montana State University. Ethan's workshop, I hadn't touched it for months. I stood in the doorway for 20 minutes before I finally stepped inside. His tools still hung on the pegboard, hammers, saws, wrenches arranged by size. His work gloves sat on the bench, palms up, as if waiting for him to come back. I picked them up, held them, then set them back down exactly where they were. I decided to leave the workshop untouched. A time capsule, a shrine. The birdhouse camera, the one hidden in the cottonwood tree overlooking the yard, I kept it. A reminder of Ethan's foresight, the gift that had revealed the truth. Through the fall and winter, I'd repaired what needed fixing: fence posts, the barn roof, the porch steps, the bridge over the creek. I worked alone, slowly, as if Ethan were beside me, handing me tools, offering advice, laughing at a bad joke. Some days I imagined he was. Those were the good days. Now in late February I had a ritual. Every Saturday morning I drove from Billings to the ranch, 67 miles, 1 hour and 8 minutes. I arrived at dawn. I made coffee in the kitchen black, no sugar, and walked the property past the grain shed, along the creek, through the pine forest, down to the south fence line. I checked gates, water troughs, fence posts. Even though there were no animals, just habit, just care. Then I'd return to the porch, sit in the wooden rocking chair Ethan had built, and watch the sun rise over the crazy mountains. This morning, I brought something new, a photograph. Ethan at 34, standing in front of the barn, smiling, holding a hammer. Margaret, my wife, Ethan's mother, had taken it 2 years before she died. I propped the photo against the porch railing next to my coffee. "Good morning, son," I said aloud. It felt strange at first, talking to a photograph, to a memory, to the empty air. But I kept doing it. I told Ethan about the trial, the verdict, the sentencing. I told him about repainting the door, restoring the sign, cleaning out the barn. I told him the ranch was safe now, protected, his again. I apologized for not seeing the danger, for not protecting him, for not being there at mile marker 112 on Highway 90 when he needed me most. And I told him what I'd learned, that grief isn't a problem to solve. It's a weight to carry, that justice doesn't erase loss, that a father's love doesn't end with death. At 8:15 a.m., a truck pulled into the driveway. I recognized it immediately, Robert Mitchell's Ford F-150. Robert stepped out carrying a manila folder and climbed the porch steps. He sat in the chair beside me without asking. "I figured I'd find you here," he said. I nodded. "Every Saturday." Robert handed me the folder. Final estate closure documents, all accounts settled. Debts paid, title transfers complete. Cottonwood Ranch is yours, full and clear. I opened it. Inside was a deed notarized and recorded, listing Gerald Hutchison as the sole owner of 22 acres and all structures thereon. I ran my finger over Ethan's name in the transfer section, grantor estate of Ethan Michael Hutchison, deceased. "Thank you," I said. Robert looked out over the ranch, the barn, the creek, the cottonwood trees, the distant mountains. "He built something good here," Robert said quietly. "He did." We sat in silence, drinking coffee, watching the hawks circle. Finally, Robert stood. "You going to keep it the ranch?" I thought about it. I could sell it, move on, start over, leave the pain behind, but I knew I couldn't. Ethan was here, Margaret was here, the memories, the loss, the love. It was all woven into this land, these trees, this sky. "Yeah," I said, "I'll keep it." Robert nodded. "Good." Ethan would have wanted that. He shook my hand and drove away. I stood on the porch alone. The sun was higher now, warming my face. I picked up Ethan's photograph, looked at his smile, his bright eyes, his carpenter's hands. I thought about all the things Ethan would never do again: build another shed, watch another sunrise grow old. I thought about all the things Vanessa had stolen, the future, the dreams, the possibilities. But she hadn't taken everything. She didn't take the ranch. She didn't take the memories. She didn't take the love. I set the photo back on the railing, finished my coffee, walked down the steps and across the yard to the barn. I opened the wide doors, letting the bright morning light flood inside. I picked up a broom and started sweeping dust debris, the last remnants of Kyle. The work was slow, careful, and strangely comforting. As I swept, I thought about the trial, the verdict, the life sentence. I thought about justice late but arrived. I thought about Ethan's cameras, the evidence they preserved, the truth they revealed. I thought about Dr. Wells's testimony, the forensic proof, the science of murder. And I thought about the one question that would never have an answer. Why had Vanessa done it? For money, for freedom? For Kyle, I would never fully understand. Vanessa would spend the rest of her life in prison, and she would never tell the whole truth. But I'd learned something. I didn't need her truth. I had my own. I had this ranch. I had the memory of my son. I knew Ethan had been loved, that he'd built something beautiful, that his death wasn't meaningless. It had brought justice, exposed lies, and proven that even in the deepest grief, a father's love endures. I finished sweeping, stepped back into the light. The creek still flowed, the hawk still called, the cottonwood trees swayed in the wind. Gerald Hutchison, 67 years old, wife gone, son gone, but I was still here, and so was Cottonwood Ranch. I whispered one last time to the bright Montana sky. I kept my promise, Ethan. The ranch is ours, and she'll never touch it again. The wind carried those words across the land, past the barn, over the creek, through the pines, toward the mountains where the sky meets the earth, and the past meets the present, and the dead live on in the hearts of those who love them. And I stood there at last, at peace. Looking back on this family story, I realized that family betrayal isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet, a forged signature, a pill crushed into coffee, a smile hiding a plan. Vanessa entered our lives as Ethan's wife, and I welcomed her. I trusted her. I never imagined she'd become the person who destroyed him. If I could give you one piece of advice, don't be like me. Don't ignore the small signs. Don't assume love is always what it appears to be. Trust, but verify. Protect what matters: your children, your legacy, your truth. In this family story, I learned that silence can be deadly and that justice requires vigilance. Family betrayal nearly destroyed everything Ethan built, but by God's grace, I found the strength to fight back. God placed Martha Kerrigan at her window the day I needed a witness. God guided me to those cameras, and God gave me the courage to stand in that courtroom and demand the truth. I believe Ethan is with God now, and that God saw every lie Vanessa told and brought it into the light. The lesson I carry is, this evil hides in plain sight, but truth always surfaces when you refuse to look away. This family story isn't just mine, it's a warning. Guard your family. Question what feels wrong. And when family betrayal strikes, never stop seeking justice. If this story moved you, please share it. Leave a comment about your own experiences. Subscribe to the channel so more family stories like this can reach those who need to hear them. Thank you for listening.